Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you guys joining me today. Today is actually Thursday. Wow, August 6th, 2026. We are live. Yes, today is Thursday, and I appreciate all of you giving me the grace to be able to take Tuesday off because I was so exhausted from work. And so I needed to just have a day so that I could be able to recover a little bit. Of course, I had to work yesterday, but I promised that I would be back here on Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we are promptly back. So good to see all of you guys joining me on YouTube, Twitter, Rumble, and Kick. Good to see all of you guys join me here today. Also, if you guys have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps me out to be able to reach more people. I see the subscribers going up, which is cool. This is a pleasant surprise. Good to see everybody else that has just recently subscribed, who may have been watching for the channel, been sitting on the fence a little bit. It's deeply appreciated by all of you. I'm hoping that you guys find value into what I talk about, as well as my perspective, as well as my opinion on this channel. So thank you so very much to everybody. Also, if you guys would like to, you subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I write any articles, upload any clips, or go live just like this. You guys have received it about half an hour ago. So you guys get that, as well as any notifications. Of course, many of you who actually are on the email list, you guys got a notification that I was going to be taking the day off on Tuesday. So you guys also got that as well. And yeah, so you guys have that too. Also, if you guys would like to ask me a question, you guys can do that through QBounty at qbounty.com/Jaybefaunt. And you guys can ask me a question. I give a video response, or I react to a video that you guys find interesting there. So thank you very much. Guys, it's so good to be back, to see all of your happy, smiling faces behind the computer screen, so to speak. So let's get into some of the things we're going to be talking about today. But first, I want to say hello to everybody that's in the audience, that's talking, chatting, watching. And we're going to be getting into these three stories, these three segments that we're going to be talking about today, because I think it is going to be, one is going to be turning tragedy into something positive. And then another one is basically going to be a report on what's really going on here in the United States. And I'm gonna be honest with you, it's gotten worse. But shout out to Roger Meadows for submitting this story, the breakdowns of this with me, so that I can be able to report on this as well. So thank you very much for that. But then also we're going to do a reaction. Unfortunately, it's from Piers Morgan again. So we're going to be doing that reaction and responding as well to his argument or debate with friend to the channel, Briahna Joy Gray. So good to see everybody. Let's start off with Edward coming in saying, "Hi, JB. I'm glad you were able to get the rest needed." Thank you so very much for that. Good to see you in here. And we're going to be getting into the poll, but wait until we get into the story about the Burger King worker. We will get into that in a little bit. Now, we have Sean coming in saying, "Currently battling sickness while on the job." Good seeing you, JB. Man, I am so sorry you're sick. Wishing you a speedy and easy recovery. But see, this is why I talk about the system, right? Because you shouldn't have to be working while sick. You should be at home recovering without having to worry about making sure that rent or mortgage is paid for, that you have your transportation, all your basic necessities provided for if you get sick. You shouldn't have to worry about that. And yet, there you are at work, working hard, but at the same time, you're not 100%. And so this is one of the reasons why I have this channel. Because not only as somebody that is part of the workforce, but also somebody that tries to amplify the voices of the workforce. A lot of us do not want to have to put our bodies on the line for the sake of a small few, even when we're sick, just so that we can make them more profits. And unfortunately, and I know, Sean, you probably don't really have much of a choice in this. But it's like, okay, if you're working while you're sick, that also prolongs how long you're sick. And so you don't get to recover as fast as you would like. And plus, you're around other people, and then you're inundated with people who may have different ailments as well. And so the problem is that you're also constantly fighting another battle on that front. Then, if you're working, especially if it's a more physical job, then what you're doing is you're taking resources that the body needs to recover and you're giving it to essentially your employer. And so that's not fair. And in a system that does not give fairness, we should change the system so that it's more fair. One of the things that I can't stand is when you talk about the unfairness of the system and people go, well, life's not fair. Then we make it fair. Right? Why do we have reforms? Why do we have laws? Why do we have amendments to make things more what? Fair. If that's the case, if life's not fair, then let's make it more fair. Let's give ourselves more equity within the fairness that we all face. We're gonna face things like natural disasters and rare diseases and sicknesses and different tragedies and accidents that may happen. Even if we completely change the system tomorrow, we would still have to deal with some of these things. Do you think, breakups would still happen because, some people, they're just not compatible or they do stupid stuff, right? And so we're not talking about utopia. We're talking about just making things more fair so that it is better off for all human beings as well as other sentient beings on this planet. And so it's just weird to me why when people say, oh, life's not fair, they're willing to accept the unfairness as long as it doesn't affect them. And that's the issue. They're willing to accept the unfairness as long as the unfairness does not affect them. But then once it affects them, oh my God, that's not fair. Life's not fair, remember? You see what I mean? So that's one of the things I wanted to put in there. Thank you so very much for the super chat, Accord Lord. Yes, it gives 2 joules. I think that's 100 points. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it. That means a lot. Thank you so very much. We have CBC voter coming in saying, yo, JB, good to see you. We have Aaron coming in saying, bro, JB, same, I swear. Yeah, right? Exactly. We have Randy coming in saying, I'm all kinds of sad because our comrade Savvy Savs won't be live tonight. Yeah, I know. But rest assured, she's having fun. It's not because of anything bad. It's not because of anything, that an obligation or anything like that. It's out of celebration. You know what I'm saying? So, it's part of a good thing. That's why. So be happy for her. Of course, she's not going to be live. And I was going to go live this evening, but I promised you guys 3 p.m. So I'm sticking to my promise. But yes, it is important that, you guys get your Sappy Saps time. But rest assured, Sunday. Yeah. So. And yes, this is true. Aaron says, life's not fair. It's as bad as if you don't like it, leave. Right? All right, folks, let's get into the subjects we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be getting into the segments. Let's go over the thumbnail, and then we shall jump right in. So today we're going to be talking about a few things. So later in the show, we're going to talk about Fired for Free Palestine. That is a story that has a happy ending. We're going to be getting into that, which I am going to be very glad to update you guys on. But I want to make sure that we get the heavier stuff out of the way. So that's why this is going to be the final segment we're going to be covering today, because I think that what happens here is deeply indicative and important of a larger issue within our nation when it comes to um, how we think of and who we support as far as different groups. But then we're going to be, before that, we're going to be discussing this debate between Piers Morgan and Briahna Joy Gray. And we're going to be talking about abolitionists or abolishing. And there's quite a few things that we're going to be discussing. And I'm going to put my thoughts into it, but also in the process of the debate, there's a few things that I noticed that I really do not like on Piers Morgan's part. And I think these things need to be called out because, unfortunately, being Black on the left, there's not a huge amount of defense for us in independent media. And so I want to be one of the ones that defends those of us who are looked down upon or sidelined more often. So we're going to be discussing that as well. But first, we're going to be talking about out of reach. This is going to be basically the report that I talk about all the time. The 2026 report has just come out. We're going to be discussing the numbers. We're going to be discussing things about housing. And so let's get into this right now. We're going to be getting into this here. It's worse. Let's get into this right now. The National Low Income Housing Coalition puts out a report every single year called this Out of Reach report that actually shows how much an average American can afford a 2-bedroom rental within the United States in their respective states and how much they would need in order to be able to afford it. This is actually showing how awful, how terrible the cost of living crisis we are in. One of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to share this report, but also I'm going to be talking about why this information is so important for each one of us to re-examine how we think about this system and what we can do in order to turn things around for us as poor and working poor people. I'm mainly talking to the working class and the people who are regarded as the poor class. I'm not talking to the people who consider themselves middle class, but are typically more affluent. But rest assured, you are also one accent away from a tragedy as well. If you're a worker, you need a job to survive. You should be listening to this. And so I want to get into this because there is this report that has came out. I'm going to show you guys the website first, and then we're going to be getting into some of the details because this is really important for us to examine. So this is the National Low Income Housing Coalition, and they do the Out of Reach report every single year. It just came out, and the person who introduced this to me was actually Roger Meadows. Shout out to Roger for this. And I've been looking at it since 2024. Or I think I first saw the 2023 one. I think I first saw the 2023 report, and then the 2024 came out, and then I've been following it up ever since. So this shows how much do you need to earn to afford a modest apartment in your state. So the light blue is below $2,250. Medium, more baby blue is $2,250, $3,250, and then more of a solid darker blue is above $3,250. And if you look at this, a lot of the states are getting darker, right? A lot more states are in the dark blue. And so if you hover over each one of these, you can actually see their ranking, the amount of money required to afford a two-bedroom apartment, and how many hours you need to work at the minimum wage of your state in order to afford a two-bedroom apartment. So, of course, states like North Dakota, which actually have a lower cost of living, you see that, of course, you need to make $20.92 an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment. But according to their minimum wage for the state of North Dakota, you need to work 115 hours a week to afford a two-bedroom rental. And so it gets more ridiculous the higher it goes. And I think the least was actually Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is also included in here. So you have Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico, which is number 51 and 52 within this list. So it's 52. So you need to work 44 hours a week in order to afford a two-bedroom rental in Puerto Rico, which is fairly affordable for somebody that gets a little overtime. But as we know, a lot of people don't get overtime because a lot of these companies do not want to pay in overtime. But you need to make $11.57 an hour to afford a two-bedroom rental home, which a lot of us make, but we all can't live in Puerto Rico. And let's be real. Let me make myself bigger just for a second. Don't y'all go moving to Puerto Rico. First of all, because there's a thing that I call intrastate gentrification. What is that? It's happening here in Florida, where you have people who are from more expensive states, they move to a cheaper state like Florida. And then the more people that move, the higher the prices go up. And so the people who have been living here longer or more natives to Florida, they can't afford to no longer live in the areas where they were living or even in the state itself, because so many people who have made more are now living among them. So prices rise. And so then guess what? It displaces the people. This is why I call intrastate gentrification. Now, I don't know if I just made up the term, and somebody else hasn't made it up yet, but this is the term that I, in my head, made up. Intrastate gentrification, basically people from a more expensive state moving to a cheaper state in order to have a better life, but then in doing so, they move out the natives of that state or the people who have lived there the longest in that state due to being overly cost burdened. And so it's the same thing that can happen to Puerto Rico, right? And so don't try to move to Puerto Rico because you're saying, well, I mean, if you really, are that desperate, but guess what? Eventually, if a lot of people do it enough, guess what? Puerto Rico is going to become even more unaffordable. And this is the vicious cycle as part of it, right? So I just wanted to point that out. So the problem isn't necessarily where you live. The problem is the system as a whole, the system itself. That is the problem. And so let's go even deeper. So I'm going to share just a couple of these, and then I'm going to get into the list that Roger shared with me. So my state, Florida, now, just to let you guys know, in my state of Florida, number one, Florida is a red state. 2, Florida is a state in the South. 3, Florida has no state income taxes. Okay? So all this factors in, and you would think, well, housing must be cheaper. Wrong. In 2024, Florida was the 10th most expensive state to live in. I'm sorry, no. In 2024 was, 2024 was the 10th most expensive state, Florida. In 2025, Florida was the 9th most expensive state. in the country to live in. It's slightly dropped back down to number 10. So Florida is the 10th most expensive state to live in the entire country. Out of 52 locations, you need to make $37.93 an hour to afford a two-bedroom rental at our current minimum wage, which is $14 an hour, and it will go up to $15 an hour next month here in the state of Florida. You need to make 108. You need to work 108 hours a week in order to afford a two-bedroom rental in the state of Florida. 108 hours a week. That is unsustainable. I don't know who can do that. And we shouldn't have to. That's the problem. And people go, oh my God, well, this person is a billionaire and they work so hard. No, they don't. Get that fantasy out of your head. They do not. You mean to tell me that John Morgan, Jeff Bezos, and Donald Trump worked that hard? And yes, all three of them Florida residents. No, they do not work that much harder than you. Despite them being billionaires, they don't. They just learn how to exploit people enough so that they can have their paradise on earth while everybody has to wait to die to get theirs. Let's continue on. So of course, let's look at Texas. A lot of people moving to Texas. It's the 487, right? You need to make $20.91 an hour, but you have to work 115 hours a week to afford a two-bedroom rental. Look at Ohio. Number 39, you need to make $22.19 an hour, but you have to work 59 hours a week, right? Virginia is number 15, 33.37. Everybody already knows that California and New York are going to be some of the top. California is the most expensive state. You need to make $52.79 an hour in order to afford a two-bedroom apartment. You have to work 125 hours a week to afford a two-bedroom. Michigan, right? They just Abdul El Sayed just won his Senate primary. You need to make $25.53 an hour to afford a two-bedroom rental. In New York, right? And New York isn't just New York City. It's Buffalo, it's Rochester, it's Albany, it's so many different places, right? But you need to make $48.46 an hour to afford a two-bedroom rental. I guarantee you this, and anybody who's from New York can probably attest to this. If New York City did not exist in the state of New York, the state of New York would be vastly, vastly more affordable. The prices for things would vastly drop because you don't have New York City there. The cost of living or the average would not bear out that much. But yet here we are. Let's look at a couple more, right? Let's look at Tennessee. You need to make $26.21 an hour at 145 hours a week to afford a two-bedroom rental. North Carolina, $27.11 an hour. You have to work 150 hours a week to afford a two-bedroom apartment. Pennsylvania, I have family that's from Philly. You have to make $28.87 an hour, but you have to work 159 hours a week. Illinois, you have to work you have to make $30.36 an hour and work 81 hours a week. And so this just shows you how unsustainable this really is. But let's go into the breakdown of this. And once again, thank you to Roger Meadows for this. Okay, So there's the outer reach report. And let's go back down to Florida, because I would like to see Florida, because I want to break it down, because it also breaks it down by cities, right? So, okay, let's go to Florida. Let's see. All right. So in Florida, right? Of course, it's number 10. You have to make $37.93 an hour. But here's the facts. $14 an hour, like I said earlier. Average renter wage is $24.27. Two-bedroom housing wage is $37.93. Number of renter households, and it gives percent of renters, right? But most expensive areas. Monroe County, you need to make $48.15 an hour to live in Monroe County. Miami Beach, you need to make over almost $47 an hour. Fort Lauderdale, you need to make almost $45 an hour. West Palm Beach, you need to make almost 43. And in Naples, you need to make almost $39 an hour. And so these are some of the most expensive housing areas within the state of Florida. And so this is also what I want to share with you guys, that also these population centers are also some of the most expensive. I'm not going to continue to belabor the point ad nauseum, but even with the state of Florida, where you have no state income tax, and of course you have, this state is ran by the Republican Party. They own, they run the governor's mansion, they run the state house and state senate, and yet it is the 10th most expensive state in the country. This isn't some red or blue, like, oh my God, the blue cities are too expensive. No, or the blue states are too expensive. No, here you have Florida, and it is extremely expensive. And it's unsustainable. And we need to stop looking at this as a partisan issue. This is a class issue. This is an issue regarding different, this is an issue regarding the system that we live in. And you can go to other states, right? We can go to other states and take a look, right? Let's look at let's look at Kentucky, right? Kentucky is number 43, right? You need to make $21.64 an hour. But then in Kentucky, right, their minimum wage is $7.25, which is the federal minimum wage. Cincinnati in Kentucky, you need to make about $26 an hour. Clarksville is almost $26 an hour. Lexington and Fayette, you have to make $24.46. Louisville is $24.46, and then Livingston County is $22.27. Right? Let's look at Michigan. Most expensive areas: Ann Arbor, Grand Rapids, Holland, Grand Haven, Leelanau, and Livingston. Let's look at Missouri. Kansas City, KC, over $26 an hour. St. Louis is over 23. Columbia is over 22. Springfield, over 21. St. Joseph is over $20 an hour. But look at the minimum wage. The minimum wage is $15 an hour. Why is it $15 an hour, though? Is it just because the legislator was just good-natured and good-hearted and wanted to make sure that the workers actually survive living in the state? No, they had to pass it through direct ballot initiatives. So the citizens forced it through. Why are we getting to $15 an hour next month here in Florida? Because the citizens pushed it through. And so this is why one of the things to mitigate the harms to the working class is also ballot initiatives. Because we know that the politicians aren't going to do what we want. But if we can go and circumvent the politicians and just do it straight ourselves, then we can help ourselves. And so I wanted to share this with you guys, and I'm going to share the Out of Reach report. Save it and share it with everyone you know. And one of the reasons why I wanted to share this as well is not just everything sucks, right? Because let me take a sip for a second, because everybody knows everything sucks. The point is, what can we do about it? Because I don't know about you, I'm sick and tired of diagnosing the problem. I want to find a solution. Fortunately, we know the solutions, but are we willing to carry those solutions out? And the solution is not reform, because they did that before, and then we wound that back in this spot. Now, if you want to do things to alleviate some of the pain for the working class, great. But ultimately, it's just like toothaches. It's like a toothache. It's like you have a tooth that's rotting and you have an extreme pain in your jaw. And they give you pain meds to numb the pain or dull the pain so it's not as intense. You still feel it, but it's not as intense. Doing some things that help alleviate some of the pain for the working class is good because it dulls the pain, at least for now. But eventually that tooth has to come out. And what do we mean by taking out that tooth? That tooth is the system. It is rotten to the core. You have to extract that tooth because you will not feel the complete alleviation of that pain as long as that tooth still exists. So we can Novocaine, Oragel, give laughing gas, all we want. But then once it wears off, the pain is still there. The toxicity is still there. And so the point is that if you want to give some Novocaine, if you want to give some laughing gas, if you want to put some Oragel on that tooth, by all means. But the tooth still got to come out, baby. Still got to come out. So yes, do all the things that are involved in alleviating the pain for the working class. This is why, like for instance, and some people are going to get mad at me for this, but I don't badmouth when Zohran Mamdani does some good, positive things for New Yorkers when their tangible needs are met. I'm not going to belabor. I'm not going to fault him for that. But still, the system needs to be dismantled and rebuilt anew. But at least this gives some alleviation to the pain, right? When you go to a hospital, when you go into triage, when you're in extreme pain, the first thing they do is they give you some medication to alleviate that pain. But the process of fixing the root cause still exists, and the root cause still has to be addressed. And so this is the point. We cannot lidocaine ourselves to liberation. We cannot lidocaine ourselves to a baseline of dignified existence. We can't do it. The underlying issue has to be fixed. And sometimes that may take a scalpel and some anesthesia and some other tools, and it may not be pretty. This out of reach report is your MRI. This out of reach report is your ultrasound. That's what this is. And so now, because we have this, now we know, okay, this is what the issue is. And we also have directions of how to alleviate it, but it takes the will of the people in order to do it. Are you ready? If you are, I'll see you out in the streets. Go ahead and give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much to everybody. Let's get into the comments, and then we shall move on. Let me see here. All right, so let me check, see if we have any gifted subs on Kick. I think we're okay, though. Oh, wait. Hang on. I think we're okay. I don't know how to read this. I'm gonna have to research that, but I think we're okay on gifted subs. I think. Thank you very much there. All right, let's go into Rumble. Let's go into the Rumble, see if we have any Rumble rants. Damn, that tea was good. I put my foot in that tea. All right, we're good there. All right, let's go into the super chats. And then we shall go into the regular chats, and then we shall thank the patrons afterwards. Let me make sure I star all these so they're all in one spot so that I don't miss any. Just remember, guys, I do not have a producer, so this is all me. All right. Okay. Thank you so very much to Unemployed Scholar for the super chat, giving me a solidarity. Thank you so very much for that. Appreciate it. That means a whole lot. And then you see, Edward says, even, hang on. Ooh. I'll get to that one next. Thank you for this, Roger. He says the interstate gentrification is me leaving New York and going to Florida. Intra is you moving from Orlando and going to Tallahassee. So yeah, so let me correct myself. Interstate gentrification and then intrastate gentrification are both problems. But yeah, you're right. Interstate. My apologies. Thank you very much for that, Roger. Thank you very much for this as well. He says, this is the decade anniversary of me. This is the decade anniversary of me. Check out of reach. With that said, I got a surprise DM you 2016 RPT. Compare with audience how much things went up. Oh, wait, you've been following this since 2016? Wow. Interesting. You see here, it says in 2016, New York was at 2669, and New York City plus Long Island was $30 to $31 an hour. 2026 New York report says 48 to 46, and then Long Island suburbs was $52.83 an hour, and New York City was $55.96 an hour. That is a 81.57% increase. Jesus. Dude, how are you surviving right now? Roger, you got to be showing a little leg, on the street corner or something in order to survive. I just hope you put on some lotion. But you know what I'm saying? I need to put on some fishnets and walk up and down the street. Oh my God. This is absolutely deplorable, man. And people are like, oh my God, well, the stock market's up. Who cares about the stock market? People are homeless. Oh my gosh. Thank you for this, Roger. He says CBI amendment that pegs the state minimum wage to what it says on the report and peg it to automatically increase with fair market rent. He says, and thank you for the next one, provide permanent tax subsidies to small and mid-sized businesses and startup worker cooperatives to cover 85 to 100% of labor costs. With funding from a public bank, right? Wait, but that's more infrastructure though. But could a public bank also contribute to this as well, Roger? Just let me know in chat. It doesn't have to be a super chat. I'm just curious about that. Because I'm curious. Okay, so also, Edward says even the so-called affordable housing programs are not really that affordable. Plus, they put you on a list, which means you have to wait. No guarantee you will get an apartment. Absolutely. Last time I checked, and it's probably longer now, the Section 8 housing list is actually over 5+ years long. Last time I checked, it's probably even longer now. People cannot survive out in these streets, and you literally have to wait in order to be able to get affordable housing. 5-year waiting list. That's crazy. So what do you do in the meantime? Just sleep out in the streets? Just shack up with friends and sleep on their floor or their couch? Good afternoon to you, Bryce. Good. Bryce says, good afternoon, JB and comrades. A court lord says, saying hello to Bryce. Thank you so very much. See, Maverick said, feeling targeted with that metaphor. The metaphor? I use so many metaphors that I don't even remember which ones I use. But I hope it worked in a positive way. Edward says that the wage is going up to $15 an hour in Florida. You can't survive on that wage for a single household. You need 2 to 3 people living together in order to make ends meet. And the crazy part is like, yeah, but here's the problem though. People shouldn't have to. Now, of course, our culture is also based on the nuclear family. which is really just a way to maximize profits so that, you know, um, let's say a refrigeration company, instead of having one refrigerator in a household that has multiple generations, if you can split it between three generations, then that's three refrigerators you sell instead of just one, right? If it is a bathroom fixtures household, and instead of having a two bathroom household where you have two showers, two sinks, well, instead you'll have six showers and six sinks if it's a three generation household, because now you want to have it as the nuclear family. So that's three nuclear families instead. And so you double or triple or quadruple the amount of things that you need. And so that's part and parcel of the issue. But at the same time, there are some people who want to be on their own, but they should be able to, live with dignity on their own without having to live with others. You know what I mean? And that's just something that rubs me the wrong way. You shouldn't have to live with people under duress. Essentially, I don't agree with that. Ian says, "Bravo, brother! Thank you so very much for that." Skylar says, "Hey JB, hey everybody. Now, what did Arianna do?" I'm not talking about Miss Grande. I'm not talking about her. Marlo says, "I'm listening and walking through downtown San Francisco, and I'm seeing so much of what we're talking about." Yeah, it's heartbreaking, deeply heartbreaking, definitely. Thank you very much for this. He says, yes, a public bank creates a surplus in your economy. And Roger says, I got a real good job and very easy job driving people to dialysis, urgent care, hospitals, emergency rooms, orthopedic, alcohol and drug rehab, physical rehab, good money. Yeah. And that's the great thing for you, Roger. Hang on. He says, only problem is this, it's been such a long time. I had a paycheck below the cost of living, and I finally got a paycheck above the cost of living, but I created so much debt that it's going to take me some time to get out of. And yeah, and the problem is, like, how many people have that opportunity like you know, for every one opportunity like yours, there's like 1,000 people who don't have that, you know, and that's why there needs to be more fairness in the system. And yes, we're going to be talking about the other Arianna in a little bit. By the way, Scholar, you're going to like this Arianna. All right, so let's give a shout out to the patrons, and then we shall move on to the next one. We're going to be getting into this debate. Oh, Jesus, this debate. I cannot. Oof. But first off, we're going to say thank you to all the patrons on Patreon. For without you guys, channel would not exist. Look, we have Mega Jaybefaunters, Super Duper Jaybefaunters, Super Jaybefaunters, and Jaybefaunters. We have Comrades, Solidarity, and JB members. And if anybody's asking, James, did you rip that from Savvy Savs? Yes, I copied it. And what? Hold on. Let me make myself larger. Yeah, I copied it. And what? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. Of course, I copied my sister. Why wouldn't I? She does a damn good job, so I might as well do the same. Anywho. Shout out to all the new members who have joined, as well as Mohammed Nimir, Jenna Gower, and Shravanti Narmeen Ali. I hope I did not butcher your names, but if I did, my apologies. But thank you so very much for becoming new members of the channel. You guys make this possible, so thank you so very much to every single one of you. Guys, let's go into the next one. And let's see what's going on between Piers Morgan and Briahna Joy Gray. Oh boy. Oh boy. All right. So let's talk about abolitionists. This is a debate that happened between Briahna Joy Gray and Piers Morgan. And so I want to make sure that, I get into this because I think it's deeply important, because the way Piers actually frames the questions is very seedy to me. I don't like it because it's disingenuous and in bad faith. So let's get into this. Abolish. Let's jump into this right now. Briahna Joy Gray was recently on Uncensored with Piers Morgan, and they actually had really a debate. And instead of it really debating the stances of DSA, because a lot of DSA candidates, Democratic Socialists of America, their candidates have won in recent weeks, either in primaries or elections. The debate shifted from their beliefs to Briahna Joy Gray's beliefs, personal beliefs. And so I'm going to focus on this and react to this along with you guys, because this feels like a bad faith, disingenuous attack on the ideas without actually hearing the nuance. And the funny thing is, I noticed that when you start to give nuance, things start to make sense, which scares the shit out of Piers Morgan. And so let's get into this, because this really got me riled up. Also, I did notice some microaggressions that we need to point out, especially when it happens to those of us who are Black on the left, because we experience these things like crazy, and it is just not fair or right. So let's go into this. So first, we're going to jump in here. And this is, and by the way, the thumbnail for this particular stream with Briahna Joy Gray and Piers Morgan, she's not on the thumbnail. She's not on the thumbnail, and it's not anywhere in the title. And so this, why are you hiding her, Piers? Because if she fully fleshed out on your show exactly what she thought, then it sounds more reasonable. But you don't want that, do you? Man. Let's start.
As candidate in South Florida, Briahna Joy Gray, the former National Press Secretary to Bernie Sanders, Marianne Williamson, the former Democratic presidential candidate, and Joe Walsh, the former Republican congressman. Well, welcome to all of you. A perfect panel to debate all this. Marianne Wilson, welcome back to Uncensored. Mamdani may be the most high-profile person in this movement, but he's not an outlier. This is a clip of the DSA national co-chair, Megan Romer, outlining the policies on a Fox News Truth or False segment. Let's take a look.
Abolish borders and give amnesty to anyone currently in the U.S. illegally.
As a long-term plan, yep.
Defund the Pentagon.
Absolutely.
Abolish prisons, at least in large part.
Yeah, again, that as part of a long-term program, yeah.
So, I mean, Marianne, according to that, the DSA wants to abolish borders, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, ICE, and prisons, and give full amnesty to illegal immigrants. Briahna Joy Gray, and we'll come to you, Briahna, commented these were fundamentally good and correct positions. Do you think they're fundamentally good and correct positions, Marianne Williamson?
Well, I think that the Democratic Party has to stand for a kind of intelligent middle. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, there are going to be people who have rather extreme positions. But we need.
Okay, so one of the things I want to point out here, guys, the intelligent middle. Here is the problem with radical centrism. Did I say that correctly? Centrism. Radical centrism. It's, oh my God, these guys are so immature. You have one side on the far right, and they're just too extreme. And you guys, these guys on the far left, and they're just too extreme. We got to be pragmatic and stay right in the middle, when the middle is actually on the right. It's not in the world middle. In the United States, the Overton window is far to the right. And to them, it's like, oh, well, we got to go back to 1980s Republican. That's around the middle. Because 1980s Republican is the Democrat Party of today. That's basically it. So when they say, she's trying to be artful in this, and Marianne Williamson is trying to be artful in this by saying the, intelligent middle. And my thing is there an intelligent middle when it comes to slave abolition? Either keeping slaves or completely abolishing slavery. Is there an intelligent middle? When it comes to the exploitation of the global South and total liberation of the global South, is there an intelligent middle? Right? And this is how far gone it is in this country, that we're basically saying something to the effect of, oh, we just got to find an in-between of not being burned and being burned alive. We just got to find an intelligent middle. There is no intelligent middle when it comes to liberation. Either I'm in the cage or I'm out of the cage. There ain't no middle. I can't be in between. Black folks, you know exactly what it was. Like Mama said, you going in and out the door, letting the cold air out, either you're inside or you're outside. Pick one. Right? What did we do back in the 80s and early 90s, kids? We stayed our behinds outside. Got to use the bathroom? Well, it's easy being a boy. Go in the bushes over there. Thirsty? There's a garden hose. You know what I mean? You want to go in the swim in the swimming pool? Find a person that's at least 18 years old. Like, hey, can you watch me while I'm here? Yeah, sure. All right. Get our swimming trunks and jump in the pool. But the thing is, like, there is no intelligent middle when it comes to liberation. And some people just ain't thinking that deep, when in reality we need to. And as you watch this, you're going to see there is this fight against intellectual thought. There's this anti-intellectualism, but the anti-intellectualism is fought on the side of the people who want to keep the current system in place, even though it is harming the most disenfranchised groups in the world and in this country. Let's continue on.
We need to remember that the American people are not waking up every night, lying awake, worrying about that. What they're worried about is the fact that they can't pay their bills. They're worried about the fact that they don't have food for groceries. They don't have food for gas. They don't know if they can treat their own medical conditions. They don't know if they can send their kids to college. So when it comes to after the primaries, the Democratic Party has to get on the same page of knowing that we have to deliver for the American people a compelling alternative to Donald Trump, and not let this squabbling so separate us that the American people think that that's what the Democratic Party is. We need to keep on policies that will help people, that we can tell people how we're going to pay for them, how that's going to fix their lives, and yes, what we're going to say in response to those who criticize it. There will be people on the fringe in the Republican Party and in the Democratic Party saying extreme things, but we as Democrats need to make sure that we are talking to the American people about things that will fix their lives in a way that could actually win in 2028 and not go into the kinds of extremes that could make some people feel that we're on the left as extreme as some people are on the right.
So just to be clear, you would not agree that those policy ideas would be fundamentally good and correct positions. You would view them as extreme.
I think that they are extreme statements about conversations, some of which are legitimate to have. But we need to have an intelligent, legitimate conversations which do not include such extreme positions that it turns people off before they are willing to listen to what you're really trying to say.
Okay, so I want you guys to notice something. How many times was Marianne Williamson, how many times was she interrupted? 0. 0. Now, I want you guys to take notice when Briahna Joy Gray speaks. Let's get into it.
Okay, Briahna Joy Gray, you like these positions. You want to get rid of borders, the Senate, the presidency, the Supreme Court, ICE, prisons, give amnesty to illegal immigrants. You're exactly the kind of whack job that many people are saying are the problem in the party. Not my words, their words. Why would you support the kind of policies which instinctively most Americans, when they hear them, think whoever thinks that is a whack job?
I mean, you can say Americans instinctively feel whatever you say they feel, Piers, but the reality is that polling suggests quite the opposite. The Democratic Socialists of America are polling better than both the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So I think the question that needs to be asked is of traditional establishment corporate Republicans and Dems, why their party is so tarnished, why their brand is so bad, that ideas that do seem relatively novel to the average American ear sound a lot more palatable than two parties who say, fund ICE, who's literally murdering American mothers and nurses in the street. Let's have a foreign policy that intentionally creates pressure on the borders. Let's ignore the domestic concerns of Americans who have been struggling for decades with health concerns, with health care, with being able to provide basic needs like education and housing. I think Americans are increasingly aware that this is a sort of three-card Monty, where they're asked repeatedly to look over there at the scary thing when you have a government in office currently that ran on and is actively trying to dismantle the Department of Education, dismantle our response to disease. We're in the middle of what is being called a poop pandemic because nobody can even buy bagged veggies anymore in the United States of America. And when people like Zora Mamdani or Oliver Larkin, who's here on the panel with us, offer straightforward common sense solutions, or even old-time ideas like getting rid of the Senate, which is wildly unrepresentative. Does it make common sense to the average American that a state like Vermont should have the exact same representation as a state like California, the world's 5th biggest economy with 30 million people? No, absolutely not. So I think when you get out of the clickbait Fox News segments with Megan Romer, who I also just recently had on my own show, Bad Faith, by the way, and had an opportunity to have a more fulsome discussion, as Americans hear more about these ideas, they're only going to become more popular.
How many illegal immigrants would you let into the country in your brave new world?
So see, here's the thing, right? Now, see the follow-up question after everything she just said, or how many illegal immigrants would you let in? Let me ask you something. If I'm talking to a man who's married, and I go up to the man and I go, so how many years have you been beating your wife? If he says, no, I don't, I can easily go, see, he denies it. Of course, they're always going to deny it. See? There you go. Obviously, he's embarrassed now because I asked him the question. Or if he says yes, well, hey, there we go. We got to answer. He's a crazy person. He is morally repugnant. Because the premise of the question now makes you look at the person sideways, even though that person probably never done anything of the sort. But because they're asking the question in that way, it makes you want to look at that person like they're just a nut job. When in reality, it is really the fault of the person asking the question, and the question's in bad faith, especially when that person knows that that man never did anything harmful to his wife like that. Let's get into this. Let's get Briahna Joy Gray's answer.
I think what you need to do is be asking questions about why both Democratic and Republican administrations have a sanctions campaign against Venezuela and other countries in the global South that
hang on, that wasn't my question. Briahna.
Here comes the interrupting. Here comes the interrupting. Now, here is the problem. When you start to introduce nuance to answer the answer for the underlying cause of the problem, that's when they don't want to hear it. They want to hear a Band-Aid fix. My thing is, they're like, oh my God, all these illegals coming in. Right? And so, okay, so why would the illegals be coming in? Why would undocumented people be coming in? And some people would say, well, they're just trying to make more money and they're just trying to skip the line and blah, blah, blah. Maybe true of a few. But why is their country so disenfranchised? And most of the countries that they're coming from that are so disenfranchised are typically countries that have been disenfranchised from by who? Want to take a gander? So it's like, okay, what? When you create the problem, but then complain about the problem, so then you give a solution that's only a Band-Aid for the problem, but then it's like, it's a socio-political planned obsolescence. You guys know what planned obsolescence is. It's build something so that it fails eventually, so you have to do it again. They'll close the border and then it'll get reopened by Democrats. And then they'll continue the sanctions, they'll continue the blockades, they'll continue the destabilization. And then the Democrats will open the border again, and then they'll let in more illegals, and then the Republicans will shut the border down again, and then they will stop all the illegals, and then it continues the perpetual cycle of an influx of a slow trickle to a big rush, a slow trickle to a big rush of people coming in. But the problem is that the main valve that is causing them to come in has not been shut. But what's the main valve? Well, maybe it could be the sanctions, the blockades, the interventions that our country is doing to these other places abroad that we are extracting so much from them, and we're destabilizing them so much that they actually are coming in. We wouldn't have to talk about illegals coming in if we stop a lot of this stuff from happening. If we stop the U.S. foreign policy. And so this is where U.S. foreign policy affects domestic policy, and domestic policy influences foreign policy. But people like Piers is not interested in that, because he's interested in a gotcha. Because he doesn't want to live in nuance. Because in the world of nuance, Piers's framing dies. Jesus Christ, this guy.
This is a fundamental framing problem that people persistently have.
Briahna,
yes.
Simple question. How many illegal immigrants would you let in to the United States under your Brave New World?
And how many undocumented people would you have Donald Trump or any Democratic president drive
Why can't you answer my question?
Through a crushing sanctions program like the ones
Why
that
can't
have
you
been implemented
answer
on
my
Venezuela,
question?
like the blockade that's being implemented on Cuba, like the war on drugs.
Briahna, you're not answering my question.
Below our border. These are questions you never want to answer, Piers, because you act like the problem magically materializes.
Why don't you just answer my question? It's my show.
We should live in a world. Do you
It's
agree,
my
Piers,
show.
that we should live in a world where
I
we get
ask
to
the
root?
questions.
No, I don't know that it works that way, Piers. Do you want to live in a world where you get to the root
It does
of the
work that
problem,
way.
or do you want to keep hand-wringing and passing the buck and passing blame around? Is the ultimate goal?
Why can't you
making sure
answer
that
a straightforward question?
And people in other countries are able to live their lives in
Briahna,
their nations
let's
of
try one more
origin
time.
in
Let's
peace
try one more
and
time.
prosperity.
Let's try.
This is the fuel that they use for scapegoating. So then it causes more of our rights being stripped. Because then they'll say, well, it's counterterrorism or it's fighting illegal immigration. And then guess what happens? More of our rights as citizens get stripped away. Instead of stopping these big corporations from wanting to take over all these other countries and steal their resources so that people won't feel like, or not even feel, they have to flee. My mother was telling me about, was it El Salvador or Honduras? There was these 3 young men. And, I have, people in my family that are Jehovah's Witnesses. And so these young men were Christians. They were Jehovah's Witnesses. All 3 of these brothers were murdered by the gang in that country. I think it was Honduras. 3 young men murdered. Why? Because they wouldn't join the gang. Why do you think some of these families are fleeing their country to come here so that they won't have to deal with the murdering gangs? And then people will go, but those countries, they're not doing good, and that's on the people. When Honduras actually tried to create a system that was more conducive for their people, that would not allow gangs like that to exist, but also give the resources straight to the people, the United States didn't like that. Meanwhile, the war on drugs was being fueled by this sentiment. At the same time, the government was working against itself by funding the war on drugs through the CIA and then bringing those drugs into our country, and where particularly Black neighborhoods. And the money that was being made from the sale of those drugs came from Black people. And then that money went back in, and it fueled more of the wars that we were fighting abroad to take land and resources from other people. And so some of these countries, especially in Central America, that you have these drug kingpins, well, guess what? They have good relations. One was Juan Orlando Hernandez. He was pardoned by Donald Trump. And you know who was pushing for that pardon? Marco Narco Rubio. And so when you talk about, oh man, well, these illegals are coming, and then their country is so bad, and now they're coming here and they're taking our jobs. My question is, who started that fire so that the people within the surrounding village flee and come into your town to find refuge? Who started the fire? You know what I mean? And so the United States is basically an arsonist in the middle of a village forest, and they start the fire, but then they also run back into the surrounding towns, and then they go, hey, we got to catch all these people. Let us put them in our jails. And then they catch the people, put them in the jails, but then they run out of people. So guess what? They'll take some of those people, they'll kick them out of the jail, and then those people, they go back to the villages that were partially burned down, and the villages are displaced and they're not doing very well. But then guess what? When they see them growing again, they go back into the village, they light a fire, guess what? Burn it down again, people flee back into the area. And then they arrest them and do all these horrible things, put them in jail, then they release them back. And as they continue to have kids, well, guess what? Those kids grow up too. But the village isn't what it used to be. So guess what? They send another arsonist into the middle of that village, and then that village gets burned out again, and then more flee. And then they come back into the surrounding towns and then to find refuge, or because the towns aren't just a little bit better than where they were because things have been degraded so much by the arsonist that was sent by our country. And then you get this. Let's stop the arsonist. Let's stop the people who are sending the arsonists into these areas to burn the villages down. But Piers doesn't want to hear that.
Let's try what listen, we're all into utopia. We're just trying to work out how to get there.
Then why don't you want to work
Under
toward it, Piers?
Biden,
Do you agree with these crushing sanctions programs that are the root cause of immigration?
What I agree
Do you agree with them?
Hang on. Here's my position on immigration in the United States. And then I'll ask you one more time to answer my question. Under Barack Obama, 3 million people got deported. He was the greatest deporter of immigrants in the history of the United States as a president, right? Way more than Trump. Nobody on the left gave a damn. No one on the left even really knows the number.
Okay, he's wrong about that. The left gave a damn. Liberals didn't. See, this is the thing. Words have meaning. Words matter. Liberals didn't care. Because for them, it wasn't a deal breaker. The 7 wars was not a deal breaker. The sanctions were not deal breakers. I'm going to say something that's going to get some people mad, but it is what it is because I'm going to tell the truth. And I'm not going to lie to you. The same people who cry, the same liberals who cry about, oh, well, they voted for Donald Trump. That means sexism and racism and all these different types of bigotry are not deal breakers for them just so that they can get lower taxes and they can get the Bible and prayer in schools and things like that. It's not a deal breaker for them. Same thing applies to liberals. Because you guys wanted to get some minor concessions, just some flowery words about, trans rights, or you guys want to get some flowery words about helping workers or expanding healthcare. To you guys, genocide was not a deal breaker. To you guys, sanctions was not a deal breaker. To you guys, Obama seemingly drinking tainted water and then telling the black people within the area that there's nothing wrong, that wasn't a deal breaker to you. Right? Joe Biden saying that he's going to continue to fund the police, that wasn't a deal breaker for you. Democrats not getting behind healthcare for all is not a deal breaker for you. Democrats not pushing for us to expand and give higher minimum wages for people so that they can actually survive. It's not a deal breaker for you. It wasn't. Liberals and conservatives who both are championing Trump and championing whatever Democrat there is, you guys are both the same. The problem is, it's like you're saying, well, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. But those eggs that you're breaking are marginalized people. And I'm not just talking about the people of the global south. I'm talking about people that are marginalized here. I'm talking about the black folks that live in my area, and I'm in a predominantly black American area. That is the most economically disenfranchised area in the entirety of Central Florida. We talk about the black people that live in Memphis and Jackson, right? And in Charlotte. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't we talking about that? The homeless people that may live in Atlanta, the ones that live in the south side of Chicago, the ones that may live in Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, and the Bronx. You know what I mean? The ones that live in Baltimore. Like, how are we talking about those? The people that live in the outskirts of, live within Washington, D.C., that aren't part of the political establishment. They're also suffering as well. But kneeling on kente cloth ain't doing the damn thing for us. And keeping the police banging our heads in, bashing our heads in, ain't helping us either.
Piers,
Right, it became-
the left calls him the
Actually,
reporter
no,
in
hang
chief
on,
as a
hang on.
criticism all the
Hang
time.
on, hang on.
Liberals didn't care,
Almost
but the
every-
left did care.
Hang on, Briahna. No one on the left cared because it was Saint Barack. Okay,
That is absolutely not true, but go
comes
ahead.
along. Hang on, please stop making speeches. Then Biden comes along and he allows up to 10 million people to cross the border illegally into the United States. Then Trump replaces him, partly because of what Biden did on the border. That's why he gets reelected. And he immediately closes the southern border. Your view, unless I'm wrong, is that you basically reopen the border to whoever wants to come in. And my question for you, for the last time, if you don't want to answer it, it's fine, is under your plan, how many would you let in over the border illegally into the United States? It's a simple question.
My view is that it is deeply naive and frankly sort of dim-witted to believe that the solution to global immigration crisis, which is only going to get worse because of climate change and because of the kind of international destabilization that you've seen Trump instigate with these wars in Iran and that have broadly trickled through the entire Middle East.
Can you answer the question, Briahna?
I am answering the question, but the problem is...
Hang on. Now, Briahna Joy Gray says she is answering the question. I'm going to... When she is answering the question, the problem is that Piers doesn't want to hear the nuance. And you're going to notice something. I'm going to show you something. And you guys are going to be like, wow, yeah, that's definitely a microaggression right there. First of all, the whole Briahna, let the woman speak. Let her finish. You got more, hang on. You got more smoke for a black woman than you do for these genocidal Zionists that come on your show and spew this hatred. You got more smoke for her than you do any of these other people that are maniacs. You won't even let her finish. And I don't care what people think about me, but that's anti-black as hell. Why did you bring her on then? Because you wanted to use her as the punching bag for everybody else? It's not about fairness. It's about you trying to score a point. It's not about understanding people.
Piers, you persistently don't want to hear answers to the question that don't fall into your gotcha cycle.
You're not answering the question.
And some questions, Piers, require a more sophisticated answer than let's throw up a wall on the border that may or may
let's
not
move
get to
on.
the root of the crisis.
All right, I've tried. We all know why you don't want to put a number on it, because under your utopia,
because it's absurd,
unlimited.
because there is no number.
Anyone
The goal is
can
to
come
stop
in.
immigration. Is it not, Piers? Is or is not the goal to stop immigration?
No, your goal is to stop the...
He didn't answer the question. He didn't want to answer the question.
Concept of illegal immigration.
No,
you would
that's
let
what
everybody
you're saying
in.
my goal is.
And
I'm being very clear
by the way,
about what my goal is, Piers.
as Ronald Reagan once said, very rightly, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country. Let me bring in Joe Walsh. Joe Walsh, you've been...
Okay, so he's going to go to this gentleman. I'm going to be real. I'm going to save you all the time. He is part of DSA. He's running for Congress in Florida. He's going to venture into some of the right things, but he is not going to go as for liberation and justice like Briahna Joy Gray is going. He's going to be more milquetoast. He's going to be a little bit more to the left of Marianne Williamson, but it's not going to be anything. And he's going to struggle with those questions. Truth be told, it's like, dude, you need to pick up some Angela Davis, some Assata Shakur, some George Jackson, some Frantz Fanon. You got to pick up the book, bro. You got to pick up those books, bro. Pick them up. Pick them up. So I'm going to skip that part because this is mainly about him speaking to Briahna Joy Gray. Let's go into, let me see here.
I want to bring in Marianne here. I want to bring back Marianne here. You see, Marianne, this is exactly the problem that I think people have latched onto, that Joe Walsh was touching on, that Bill Maher has been talking about, is that when you hear that response, what this person, Oliver Larkin, is actually saying is he would let everybody into the United States. There would be no border. Without a border, there is no United States. There's no country. So this is the problem, isn't it, Marianne? You've got a wing of the party that are saying these things, which are, I got to say, even me, you skew slightly liberal, right? Probably in a more old.
Oh, so he admits he's slightly liberal. You know what? That tracks. And if he's slightly liberal, then that just shows you where they're really at. Anywho, let me continue here.
Fashioned Bill Maher way, I just find that I'm incredulous that a politician in America would just open the border to anyone who wants to come in.
I'm sorry, Piers. I've been listening, and I did not hear him say that.
So kudos to Marianne for this. So let's listen. I want you guys to listen very carefully.
To have an immigration system in this country that worked. And what has happened is that, and this is Congress's fault mainly, one of the reasons why you have so many people entering illegally, and I think Oliver is making a good point, that this is a civil violation. Some of these people, and we know the humanitarian crises that lead so many people to take such desperate measures. And we also need to be having an intelligent conversation about how much U.S. foreign policy, including our war on drugs and our economic policies towards Latin America for decades, has contributed to that mass amount of desperation. They have made it so that there aren't enough stations, there aren't enough places where people can enter legally. There aren't enough places where there are judges and ways to adjudicate. This was something that Biden was working on when he was president, and it was Donald Trump who came in and told the GOP senators, even though it was a bipartisan bill, not to vote for it. And he did that because he knew it would be popular, the American people would appreciate it, and that would give Biden a win. So
that is true. She's actually correct on that. Donald Trump actually killed a bipartisan bill that would have done that. So just put that pin in that too.
Obviously, the answer is not either just open borders or closed borders. It is that intelligent middle. The asylum system is a humanitarian core of a principled America. We just have to vet people. We have to have enough judges. We have to do this legally. So I didn't hear Oliver say that. And I don't think the American people want either extreme, either open borders where people aren't even vetted, and they also don't want a shutting down of America's heart.
Let me ask you guys something. Hang on. I got a question. Just listen.
Joe Walsh.
No, that's, by the way, what Marianne just said there is absolutely correct. And look, I'm somebody who would abolish ICE tomorrow. What Trump has done with immigration enforcement is take it to a cruel, ugly, un-American place. This shouldn't be going on, but this is a dangerous overreaction to what the Democrats had done under Joe Biden when they opened things up. And Marianne's right. Most Americans don't like what ICE is doing. Most Americans don't want this going on our streets, but most Americans want America to have a damn border. Most I agree with a lot of what Oliver's saying, but when you just say you'd let them all in and then we'll figure out how to process them and all the rest, no, there needs to be a border, period. And we've got DSA candidates out there saying we want open borders. If you say you want open borders, then damn it, defend it. Defend it.
Can you name which DSA candidates said they supported open borders?
Chevalier, the one in New York
Oliver
City
Larkin.
that one supported open borders. The one out in Colorado.
The one sitting next to you on the panel. Oliver Larkin just said
He
it.
just told you that's not true. As an attorney and probably the only person who's actually handled an immigration case on this panel, everything that Oliver and Marianne have said about the failure of our processing system, like I think most people have an intuitive sense. People are coming across. You need to be able to sort people into, is there national security risk? Is this someone who is not fleeing drug crime and drug trafficking, but someone who is doing that themselves? Are these people that can be put on a path towards citizenship? But the problem is we have a backlog that lasts years and years and has only gotten worse since the days when I was an attorney, precisely because there has been an unwillingness to hire, train, and recruit administrative law judges who can actually process this claim. So what you have.
So one thing I want you guys to have noticed that when Marianne was talking, was she interrupted? Also, all the things that Marianne Williamson said with respect to the difference being being in the middle. Briahna Joy Gray was trying to say all that, but she was being interrupted constantly by Piers Morgan. Constantly. And this is the microaggression that I was talking about. Because he shut up when Marianne was talking. But when Briahna Joy Gray was trying to give nuance to give the same point before Marianne Williamson gave it, he would not let her answer. She brought in talk about how our foreign policy. Briahna Joy Gray was trying to say that, but Piers Morgan wouldn't even let her finish. And so here's my thing. Everybody's like, oh, how many people would you let in? That's not the point. The premise of the question is false. It should be, why are the people coming in the first place? That should be the question. This is the very problem with the system, is that it treats the symptoms of the issue instead of the underlying cause, because the underlying cause makes money. The underlying cause makes the rich richer. The underlying cause undercuts those of us who live here as citizens. And that undercutting saves money and gives it to whom? The people at the top. And so they don't want to hear that solution, because then that affects people like Piers Morgan's boss. You know, the guy that has his hand up his ass as a puppet. That's the reason why. Because if you really start to go at the underlying cause, then you're going to end up to the same conclusions that people like myself and Briahna Joy Gray come to, that the issue is capitalism, colonialism, white supremacy. And so, y'all, see, this is why I needed to cover this. And so they get into other things. Let's get into the part about the defunding of police? Let's get into that.
Is a party that is intentionally gumming up the process and then flinging their hands in the air and trying to politically exploit the negative consequences of not having of the crisis that has ensued. And if you want to talk about hugely unpopular 60-40 issues, the elephant in the room is that part of why all of these DSA candidates are so popular is because of Gaza. That's a 60-40 issue against Israel. We have both mainstream parties.
Briahna, respectfully, a lot of these DSA candidates are very, very popular with left and left of center people in Democratic Party, but they're not popular with all Americans. And when you put their policy positions in front of America, most Americans say no, most.
Joe, this is what's so frustrating, because when it comes to an issue like Medicare for All that 88% of Democratic voters support and 49% of Republicans, half of Republicans also support, we're never doing all of this alarmism about how, wow, there's this really popular policy that we just can't get the two major parties on board with. When we're talking about stopping funding to the genocide in Gaza, which again is a majoritarian issue against funding Israel, there's none of this hand-wringing about, oh my gosh,
Briahna, would you defund the Pentagon?
Now, here's the thing, right? A lot of people, when you pose this question to them, even a lot of conservatives now are actually saying, yeah, why are we funding Israel? We need to keep this money at home. That's a conservative position. They're agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson on this. They're not with Jonathan Greenblatt and Shmuley and the Jared Kushners of the world, and they see Benjamin Netanyahu for the demon that he is. It's crazy to me. My gosh. Anyway, let's continue on.
What
Briahna,
people say,
would you defund?
Populism. It's only
Briahna, would you defund the Pentagon? Would you defund the Pentagon?
Walsh, I want you to ask yourself the question why you have a Pentagon that has failed, 6, 7, 8 now?
I asked a simple question. Pentagon's got problems, but would you defund it? Would you get rid of America's entire Defense Department?
You guys have to stop with this absurdism that to defund something, to decrease the funding of something, is the same thing as to abolish it. When you want to abolish,
no, it's not to decrease. I'm talking about defunding. When you say defund the police, when you say, Briahna, defund the police, you're talking about getting rid of the police.
Joe, we live in a country that defunds social services every year, we have a government right now that is defunding healthcare every year. And there is, again,
I don't think you understand. Briahna.
Hang on, before he keeps going on his remix, Briahna. Yes, they are defunding healthcare, because I just did a story last week about how they're cutting Medicare Part D, which affects people like me who are on medications, anti-rejection medications to keep my kidney intact. And yet, they don't want to scream about that. They're not sitting on the table and jumping up and down going, oh my God, what's this going to do to people who need their medications? They're not talking about that. But when you talk about defunding the Pentagon, that is up to the tune of $1.5 trillion, who is murdering people abroad, then yeah, it's like, When we talk about defund the police, hang on. A lot of people are like, oh my God, we need to abolish ICE. You know what? ICE is just police for immigrants. Let's be real. And if you guys see how bad it is for immigrants, how do you think police does to us Black people? Defund the police. For some Black people, like defund the police is enough is just to take the funding from the police and reallocate it towards different resources or whatever. Now, there's two schools of thought. There's one that just wants to defund them to the point where you can reallocate resources so that the police won't be as present within our communities, because people do not commit as many crimes of opportunity, lack of opportunity, or crimes out of desperation. But then you have people like me that are the school of thought that I think defunding is a tool used for abolition. But here's the crazy part. We don't say defund public safety. We say defund the police. Why? Because the police does not ensure public safety. Just look at how many deaths that are committed by police per year to people, especially people that are unarmed. They are the threat to public safety. And yet nobody wants to talk about that. They do not solve crime. Let's continue. This is crazy, man. This is crazy.
Briahna,
That's not
large
Briahna,
budget
Briahna,
that literally loses
Briahna,
billions of dollars
I'm
every
here.
year. You want to keep
I'm
giving
here.
money to this
Briahna,
institution
stop
that you
talking.
want to keep its filings in
Stop
order?
talking. Briahna,
Stop.
it's not your show. I know it gets confusing.
Yeah, Piers.
It's my show, okay? You're a guest on my house. So please stop talking for a moment, because it's very interesting, your interpretation of what defund means. As Joe Walsh rightly says, the actual interpretation of defund the police or defund the Pentagon or whatever it may be is you get rid of that institution and you replace it with something else. What
Your
you're talking,
English, Piers,
what you
the
well,
English
this is why.
dictionary does not define
Wait a
defund
minute.
in that way.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. So I'm asking you whether you mean a decrease in the amount that you fund these organizations with, or do you believe in abolishing them? Would you abolish the police? Would you abolish the Pentagon? Would you abolish prisons? Yes, no, yes, no, yes,
If you
no.
want to know what me, Briahna Joy Gray, thinks, you can come on my show and we can debate my views at length. But I think what the viewers want to know is
Answer
what
my
the
questions.
DSA
That's why you're
candidates
here.
believe. No, why we're here is
That's
to
why you're
discuss
here.
the DSA candidates and people who are running for office, not one 40-year-old woman sitting in her apartment in Washington, D.C. So if you want to talk about what the movements to defund the Pentagon are about,
Can you
it's
answer
about
my
asking the
questions,
question-
please?
Wait, it's about asking the question of whether or not we should continuously increase funding an unprecedentedly high
No, it's
military
not.
budget
It's not.
year after
That's
year
not what
to an
defund means.
institution that literally fails its audits and can't even account for where the money is going. Do
Briahna,
you, Piers
defund
Morgan,
means no
think the
money
Pentagon
for,
should be funded
period.
more? I'm sorry,
No
Joe?
money for it.
sorry?
Defund means you abolish it.
No,
Would
those
you
are
look-
two different
Briahna, let me
words.
try
It's
one
very
more
interesting,
time.
Piers, that you
Let me
use two
try-
different words
Let me
there.
try one more time. Let me try one more time, given you don't know what defund actually means.
Oh, I know what
right?
defund
Because
means a
we've
lot
just
better
checked-
than you do, Piers, as evidenced by the fact that you chose to pivot to abolish, because you can discern a distinct difference between those two terms. Defunding, just like when Republicans say they want to defund the Department of Education, they want to defund things day and night. The whole point of DOGE was to defund the national government. And again, I don't see all the hand wringing about that. The Pentagon, no one here can answer the direct question of whether or not they believe the Pentagon, which has an unprecedentedly large budget that cannot
Okay.
pass an audit for
Okay.
8-9 years in a row,
Okay.
should get increased
Let me try.
funding.
Let me try.
Do you think that's the case, Joe? Do
Okay,
you think that's
Briahna,
the case, Piers?
Briahna, once again, it's my show, so I do the questions and then you answer them or you choose not to. I'm just going to repeat again, whatever your interpretation of defund is, and you clearly have a different one to mine and Joe's, okay.
Mine is
as
the
part
English
of that
dictionary.
debate for one moment. Well, it actually means to stop providing money, or it can mean to reduce the amount of money. So it depends what
Absolutely, it
interpretation.
can. I'm glad you've
you mean.
acknowledged that now, Piers.
But as you know, in the general debate about this, it's been accepted that when people have said defund, they mean abolish. So let me just clarify with you what you personally believe. Would you, in your utopia world, would you abolish the Pentagon, abolish the police, and abolish prisons? Yes or no?
This isn't a debate about her personal beliefs. This is about DSA, not her. Briahna Joy Gray is not part of DSA. She's not a Democrat. Why are we debating her beliefs when she's talking about where they're talking about DSA and all the DSA candidates that have actually won and what DSA believes? Why is she being on the witness stand? Why are they patronizing her? It just doesn't make any sense to me, right? This is why I say I think she was brought on to be the punching bag. But listen closely, because Briahna Joy Gray stands on business. Let's go.
No.
Piers, it's wild that you talk about the general debate about this when you're the one hosting the debate and
Answer
creating
the
the ambiguity by
questions.
posing questions
Answer
exactly
the
like
questions.
Defund means
Briahna,
decrease
would
funding
you
for.
abolish those
Abolish
institutions?
means get rid of entirely. That is a clear answer to your question. Defund means decrease funding for.
Would you?
Abolish means abolish entirely. Period.
I'm asking you if you would abolish them. Would you abolish them?
Why do you care what I personally, Briahna Joy Gray, I know why you care.
Because you're a
actually,
guest on my show.
No, because you want to make this a conversation about whatever. I am to the left, way to the left.
I just want to know what you think. Why is this so difficult? This is excruciating.
This is not a referendum on me. This is a referendum on the actual DSA and the candidates that you are
Briahna,
frustrated are winning races because they're overwhelmingly popular.
He's annoying the oh my God. Somebody just put a muzzle on him.
I'm not running for office.
Briahna, you were invited as a guest onto a panel to debate the future of the Democratic Party in light of the rise of the Democratic Socialists.
So let's debate that.
So
and
I am asking you. Wait a minute, Briahna.
The Democratic Party
So
and
I'm
the
asking
DSA
you.
And the candidates that are running under those
Given
banners.
that the Democratic, I'm going to keep talking over you if you keep talking. Given that the Democratic Socialist candidates
back at you.
espouse a philosophy where they want to abolish all these institutions, I'm just asking you, Briahna, whether you personally would like to abolish the Pentagon, the police, and prisons. Yes or no?
I, Briahna, think it's Briahna with a ah sound. Think it's absolutely unconscionable that you can say a kind of mealy mouth. Yeah, I think it was really bad that ICE murdered American citizens in the street, but want to make this a referendum of whether one socialist, happen to believe in abolishing those programs. To me, the answer is yes.
Do it.
Yes or no?
She answered the question. Let's continue.
Long-term goal. I just answered the question.
Yes or no?
1 second. The long-term.
Yes
to
or
me,
no?
The answer is affirmatively yes.
Yes or no, Briahna?
Personally, absolutely. Me, Briahna Joy Gray, since the world is clamoring for my one woman's opinion, absolutely do believe in abolish the police, abolish the Senate, abolish the Pentagon. I do not think the American war machine, which has caused unfathomable horrors across the globe for the entirety of all of our living memory, should persist.
Got it.
We've got that. Absolutely, the Pentagon
is a force for evil in the world. Piers.
I think the police.
Hang on. First of all, right? First of all, we gotta do this. We gotta give her an applause for that one. Because here's the thing, right? Here's something that a lot of people who probably would never thought about until Briahna Joy Gray posted it and started talking about it. But Piers Morgan didn't want to expound, because once you start to explain the positions, then guess what? Then it makes it look like, well, maybe they're not as unreasonable as you think. Let me share this with you guys really quick, because when people talk about, oh my God, abolish the police, that's going to be absolutely horrible. What are they going to do? Blah, 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 blah. Let me show you guys something, okay? You guys are some of you are probably new to my channel, and if it is, then welcome. But let me share something with you guys. Did you know that, and this is from the New York Times, this is from 2005, y'all. This is from 21 years ago. Supreme Court. Justices rule police do not have a constitutional duty to protect someone. This is from 21 years ago. Let me tell you something. If they don't have a constitutional duty to protect you, then guess what? Then why in the hell do we care if they are funded? They don't have a constitutional duty to protect us, so we don't have a constitutional duty to keep them around. What? And here's the thing. A lot of times we want to talk about, oh, public safety, public safety. Do you know what some of the things that people go through that's unsafe? Homelessness, lack of health care, lack of food, chronic joblessness. And it's not because they're lazy, but because these big corporations are constantly hiring and firing people in order to maximize profits for the shareholders. And this is constantly going on day after day. We're constantly being subject to wage theft, and yet you don't have police going into these executives' houses and walking them with handcuffs on. You don't have that happening, do you? And yet they're the ones who don't seem to get arrested. So when we're talking about the whole defund the police and abolish the police, we're talking about an institution that does not actually legitimately help people in a meaningful way. And why in the hell would I want to support a system that started off with catching my ancestors who have decided to flee from being brutalized and enslaved? And then you send and deputize these white men to go catch them and bring them back. Why in the world would I support an institution that has done that to my people? You want to talk about public safety? Let's talk about the underlying causes of crime. I'm going to share this video with you guys really quick. Because a lot of times when people talk about, oh my God, defund the police is such an extreme position, when you really start to think about the facts of it, it's not that extreme, y'all.
To get life. Do you think anybody should get life without parole?
No.
What's your stance on the future of prison reform? I'm sure when you have these conversations, people like to point to the worst criminals out there. That tends to be the first thing people ask when they talk to abolitionists. Like, what about John Wayne Gacy type of people?
I think there is a place for those kinds of people. I think they're a very small population of person, right? And so when we're talking about prison abolition and abolish the police and things like that, it really does start with centering the community and the community approach to reform. I think we have reached a place where prisons are obsolete and we can really rely on the community building to reform people. Now, again, a John Wayne Gacy, totally different type of person. And I think that's where people start to get derailed in the conversation, is when they start really focusing on, well, what about John Wayne Gacy?
Well, a good maybe statistic to throw back at them is, do you know what percentage of people in prison are nonviolent offenders?
The majority of them are nonviolent offenders.
70 or 80%?
Yeah, it's a majority of them are nonviolent offenders. And most women in prison who eventually get out because of wrongful convictions are convicted of no crime crimes. So crimes never even took place. So that's something like shaken baby syndrome. And most women are in prison for actually murdering children when that never even happened. When you talk about the prison system, like Angela Davis said, I believe prisons are obsolete. People deserve second chances. There needs to be reform instead of punishment, because it obviously doesn't work. And the reason I won the Pulitzer is because when you look at what happens when laws change, you sentence these children to die in prison. You gave them no hope, no reform, no education, because most of the time you do not get education in states, especially lifers. And then the laws change in 2014 and 2017. And all of these people that you put in and threw away are now out in the street. And now what? And that was a huge deal, because some of these people did commit crimes again. And then it was like, well, look at this whole thing. Like, well, this is what happens when they get out. They'll commit crimes again. They should never get out. No, you just never gave them the tools to learn how to live in society.
Do you
And so this is part of the conversation, but that's a nuance that somebody like Piers Morgan and Joe Walsh would never really engage in. And so this is why I want to share this with y'all. Let's continue.
We got it. We got it. We got you on the record.
That's a wrap. That's a
We
wrap.
got it. We got it. Briahna, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. It's a wrap. Briahna, it's okay. Sorry, Briahna, just to be clear, you've agreed you would abolish the...
Yes,
the
abolish it all.
Wait a minute, Briahna. Please stop talking. You would...
Also, by the way, there is no reason for us to have a Senate. We already have a House. We already have representatives, which are proportional to our populations. So therefore, we do not need a Senate, first of all. And as far as the issue of a presidency, to be honest with you, I mean, we should have a governing body, not just one particular executive that presides over, especially our armed forces, because it should be a body that exists to make those decisions collectively based on the opinions of all the people that represent us. And so and also abolish the hell out of the Electoral College. Basically, we need a brand new constitution and a brand new system that actually favors people and our environment over the rest of these small group of people who want to run everything while we serve them as slaves, whether it's wage slaves, slaves in prison, or otherwise. And so, Briahna Joy Gray stood on business, right? And good for her for not letting up. And the crazy part is after she said yes, they were like, okay, that's it. That's a wrap. That's a wrap. Because they wanted to just paint her as some crazy person. When in reality, if you allow her to speak and flesh out the nuances of her reasonings, then things start to make a lot more sense. And they make a lot more sense, especially to the marginalized people within this country. You know what I mean? Because why in the hell would I want to keep an institution that's built on white supremacy? Most of these things that we were talking about, like for instance, defund the Pentagon. Hell, the gentleman that is running, he was talking about, oh, we should defund the Pentagon at least 10%. I'm like, 10%? What are you smoking? Nah, baby. At least 75%. At least. 1.5 trillion. You mean you only wanted to fund it by 10% at the least? Like, bro. And they have not passed an audit in how long? Nah, bro. Nah. No. Nope. This is why I say that the system needs to be completely dismantled and changed. And you will have people like Piers Morgan that will continue to keep trying to make paint people who are on the actual left as some crazy fringe, when in reality, when you actually think about the realities of what this system has wrought in the lives of people, you'll realize that when presented with these solutions, it actually makes a lot more sense. Like, for instance, having a system where everyone has healthcare. Just because it's a human necessity. It's just like where we do not have a Department of War. Like, if we're going to defend the homeland, defend the homeland. Why are we trying to defend the homeland in other people's countries? Why do we have bases in Bahrain, Oman, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq? Why do we have bases there? Why do we have bases in Germany? Why do we have bases in Japan? Why do we have bases in Turkey? Why do we have bases in all over South America and the Caribbean? Why do we have bases in Africa? Why do we have bases there? That's not America. That's not the United States. If we're to defend the homeland, then defend the homeland. But why are we actually over there? Oh, it's world domination. It's not just something in the cartoons. I'm not going to continue this this entire clip, but I will share the rest with you guys in the chat, just in case if you guys want to finish it up and watch the rest. But be careful with people like Piers Morgan, because he'll try to use gotcha questions, but when they don't want to listen to nuance, it is really just about not wanting to hear the ideas that are better for the people than the system. And then they'll say, well, a lot of people, the polling shows that they don't like this. And you know what's funny about that? If you were to poll people back in 1840, 1850 about slavery, how many of them would have been pro-slavery? And it always sounds wild to us after the fact. And we're just talking about taking resources and putting it more in something that actually alleviates people's angst, alleviates the thing. And you know what? One more thing. All that money that goes to the Pentagon actually should be going into Black Americans' pockets. It should be in the form of reparations. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about how the Pentagon got our money, Israel got our money, Ukraine got our money. That's ours. That's our money. $1.5 trillion for 1 year? $1.5 trillion. If you just took the 1 trillion and left the 500 million, you still have a huge amount for the military. If you took just the 1 trillion and span it out over 20 years, $1 trillion a year for 20 years, then guess what? You would give Black people their reparations within 20 years. So by 2046, if you started this year, by 2046, the entirety of reparations will be paid. 20 years ago was 2006. A lot of you guys remember that almost like it was yesterday. That's how fast reparations could be paid. Just cut the check. And yet, the moment we talk about that, oh my God, we can't afford it. But we can afford a system that operates at a loss. The U.S. military operates at a loss. And the loss goes is on us, and the gains are paid to whom? The military-industrial complex. Let's switch places. Let's give that gains to the people who are owed money for building this country. Oh, but that's a bridge too far. We can't go that route. We need to kill little kids abroad instead of giving Black Americans money for what the United States did to our little kids. We can't give grandma and grandpa Medicare Part D. We can't give a 32-year-old in Mississippi health care for her cancer treatment because, oh, well, that would bankrupt the government. Meanwhile, we're giving $1.5 trillion to the Pentagon. Talking about want to bankrupt the government. Instead of all that money going to cops, how about that money goes to kids going to school? How about that money goes into beautifying our neighborhoods and making sure that people have a living wage so that they don't end up committing crimes? And most people commit crimes that are not violent at all anyway. Or they commit crimes against their person, but not to anybody else. They're harming themselves with maybe some substances, but they're not harming other people. Let's give them some treatment instead of prison. See, these are the things that a lot of them don't want to ask because they want to keep the system in place because it makes their masters rich. Briahna Joy Gray, she stood on business. And like she stood on business, I think that the rest of us need to as well. Now, I got to take my hat off to her for that. But the question is, are you going to be prepared to stand on business when the time comes to people to ask you? And are you going to explain the nuance behind these beliefs? And also, when you explain the nuance, are you going to stand 10 toes down? Decolonization and liberation should be your North Star. I'm glad to see for people like Briahna Joy Gray, that's also hers. All right, guys, I know that was a long segment. Give a like to the stream. Thank you so very much. Let's check to see if we have any get the subs on Kick. I think we're okay over there. Okay, good there. And then let me check the Rumble side if we have any Rumble rants. Okay. All right. You see here. So we're going to go into the last segment really soon, guys. All right. So start off with this. Thank you very much for this, Roger. He said, wait, Joe Walsh is DSA. I see what you did there. When has he become a lefty? During Obama years, he was a big Tea Party guy. No, I'm not confusing him with Matt Walsh. Yeah. And don't confuse him with John Walsh. Thank you very much. Peter says, Piers Morgan is a joke. That man just wants to be on TV and talk down to people. Oh, my gosh. He deserves to be cussed out like the way what's his name? He deserves to be cussed out like homeboy from Hell's Kitchen cusses people out. Roger Meadows says, Bree, the correct answer is nationalize weapons manufacturers, how to remove profit incentive for going to war. That's another good point, Roger, because okay, I'm gonna expand on what you just said, Roger. Because why in the world do we have for-profit weapons manufacturers? That shouldn't exist. It should be illegal. It should be abolished. In fact, the United States government, just like how the FDIC, which is the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, is owned by the federal government, right? These corporations should also be government owned and should not be making profits whatsoever. And if that was to be the case, there's no profit incentive, then that means that every single time a bullet is shot or a bomb is dropped or a drone is flown, that's money coming out of taxpayer pockets, and that money is wasted. So therefore, the U.S. would actually see it as a complete loss every single time that happens. And there will be no gains for anybody. So yes, the defense industry should be fully nationalized. There should not be any private ownership of defense. And no, it should not be some nonprofit. No, fully owned by the government. Fully. I'm in full agreement with that. And guess what? All them planes would start getting repaired and maintenance like crazy. And then we wouldn't have to spend all those millions of dollars of them being remanufactured over and over. We wouldn't have to worry about all this money. Oh my gosh, it'd be crazy how much we would be doing that. Thank you very much to Roots and Barks for the 2 jewels. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. for the super sticker. Thank you also for this. 10 Jules, thumbs up. Thank you so very much for that. Appreciate it, Roots and Bark. Thank you for this, Roger Meadows. He says, we need prisons for Dahmers, apps, child molesters, and white-collar criminals. Instead, nationalize, stationalize, and municipalize the prisons to remove the profit incentive for sending people there. For sending people there. Oh, I think that's what you meant. Okay. But here's the thing. A lot of times people talk about private prisons, right? Which, it's a good thing to talk about. But we also need to talk about how there's also financial incentives for public prisons too. Yeah. There's also an incentive for public prisons because guess what? These telephone companies and all these big corporations that send things for the commissaries, for things for the sheets, the blankets, the uniforms, all that stuff is also provided by private corporations, which means that they also have government contracts in order to make money. And so the government needs to keep so many beds full in order for them to be able to make more money. So I think that we also should do the same thing with if we abolish these incentives as well. First of all, there should be farms at prisons for the inmates. Have the inmates farm their own food, right? Have the inmates farm. Have, for the ones that are, that they're not going to be violent, have cats, have dogs. You know what I mean? Have, them raise chickens and things like that. Get rid of the whole thing regarding commissaries and things like that. Have them make their own stuff, right? We have them working in, building all these different things for other corporations. Why don't they just practice self-sufficiency there? But they don't do that. They don't want to do that. Unemployed Scholar, thank you so much for this, says that Uhuru movement says that the police are an occupying military force in the Black community in the U.S. Yes. Why should we keep an occupying military force? Why should we? How have they actually helped the Black community? I think that should be part of the reparations as well as defunding the police. I think that should be part of reparations. And take that money and give it to us to use however we wish. Thank you so much for this, Roots and Bark, for 10 Jules gold coin. Thank you so very much for that, Roots and Bark. Thank you for this, Roger. He says, abolish the Senate. I have confidence they will filibuster the marriage of U.S. military, tech, and intel with Israel. Y'all really want that. I just don't think we need two different bodies of legislators in order to be able to get through what we need. What's the point in the Senate? We should just have the House and proportional representation for the states that we live in. Marlo said, thank you very much for this, Marlo's. 200 Jules. Sunshine. Thank you so very much for that, Marlo. Unemployed Scholar, thank you so much for this. It says Reparations Tribunal, 1982, Brooklyn, New York. U.S. found that the U.S. is guilty of genocide against African people in the U.S. and must be kicked out of the UN. 4.1 trillion owed, not including damages. Yeah, and that was back then. I know Dr. Sandy Garrity did a lot more research I need to get his book From Here to Equality, because I know, and Roger, correct me on this, and Unemployed Scholar, if you guys can correct me on this. I think it's somewhere north of like 14 trillion now. I need to see the update, but I know it's somewhere north of like, I know it's at least north of 12 million. I'm sorry, 12 trillion. But correct me on that. But I do know it's like way up there. Roger Meadow says filibuster comes in handy when you need it. The problem is, like, they don't do anything like that for the people. I don't know. It's just weird, man, how they operate. Edward says being in the center of the middle means no progress. Teresa says intelligent is intelligence does, Marianne. Wow. Yeah. You guys aren't feeling Marianne Williamson. Oh my gosh. The one from BK. Are you from Brooklyn? If you are, nice to see you. Oh my gosh. Roger says he agrees with Marianne. Accord Lord said Crystal Mommy. Oh my gosh, you guys. Y'all. Skylar says, to be honest, Black people should stop going on Piers Morgan's show. Mark Lamont Hill, Briahna Joy Gray, and others should just ignore his invitations. Probably, man. Probably. I don't know. Let me see. John Kemper, good to see you. Says peace, love, and solidarity. Adam B in the house. Adam Bashir, thank you so much. Blue Marble. Let me see here. Sela says drug kingpins have been funded and supported by capitalist business interests who need unstable governance to control the extraction methods of profit. That's very true. Ian says spot on about Latin American policies in the White House, very long term too. Of course, I got interested in activism because of that in the 80s as a teenager. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Let me see. Okay. Jacqueline's in the chat saying, hey, Jaybefaunt, thank you so very much. Good to see you. All right. See, Randy said you just crashed and Firefox had to restore the tab. I don't know. I mean, I'm not using Firefox, but thank you. John, you're in Chicago. It says I can show you a pothole in Chicago South Side that's older than me. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. The one from BK says, why bother to even have her on the show if he wants any easy answers? That's the thing. You can't get easy answers, you know, because it's nuanced. Skylar says she should have given the yes and no and then given the nuance, because he clearly was trying to get this reaction from her and she fell right into it. And I hate that because she's the one who is correct. My problem is that if she would have just gave a yes or no, he would have just, you know, painted her as weird and then moved on to something different. That's the problem, though. You know what I mean? Without allowing for nuance. That's my only concern. So, yeah. It sucks. You see, Sean says the amount of zen that Briahna has to not lose her mind with Piers. Yeah, sometimes I wonder if it's even worth going on his show anymore. You know. I'm sorry, what? Skylar, did Joe Walsh ever pay his back child support? Damn, I drank all my tea. I could have gave a sip for that one. Huh. I don't know what's going on. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. So let's get into, let me see. I'm just checking to see if I have any more super chats. Oh, Kill Your Grigors is in the chat. Good to see you as well. Make sure I don't miss any. This was a long segment. This is also true. Mary Poppins says, notice he didn't shush the white guy who upholds the empire. That's one of the things that I noticed. Okay. Just trying to make sure I didn't leave out any super chats so I can move on to the final segment. Okay. Sela says, JB, can you invite the podcaster Debbie Perez to discuss water shortage and rationing in Puerto Rico because of tech bros taking over the governance in poor people's lands? I don't know who that is, but I definitely would be willing to invite her. I don't know, like, is she on Twitter or Instagram, or does she have a website? If you can email me her information, my email's in the bottom of my videos. It's also in the bottom of the description of this video too. If you can help me out with that, I would love to be able to have her on to talk about that. Unemployed Scholar, thank you very much for this, says, of course, the amount owed in reparations has increased a lot. I'm not sure what it is now. The tribunal is the verdict in reparations now by chairman. Thank you so much for that. All right, so let's get into the final segment, because this is going to be something that negative happened, but it's turned into something good, and I want to get to you guys. I want to share this with y'all, but let me make sure I get to what I need to, because I want to make sure you guys see this. All right. So I just want to make sure that I have this ready and primed up to go, because this is going to be interesting to go through. I want you guys to listen to this, because this is not only an issue of foreign policy, but this is also an issue of class and race and gender, right? And so I wanted you guys to get into this. So, of course, we discussed about the Out of Reach. We talked about Briahna Joy Gray, talking about abolition, but now we're going to talk about Fired for Free Palestine. And I want you guys to take the poll if you guys already know what I'm talking about. But if you guys want to wait and hear my explanation, then we will get into it. But let's get into this discussion. Look at God. Guys, I need you guys to pay attention to this because there was a young woman that was recently fired from Burger King because she said the words "Free Palestine." I am not kidding. This is not conjecture. This is not hyperbole. And then I'm going to get into the good and positive news that resulted in this afterwards, but we're going to discuss this. Thank you so much, and shout out to Nico House for actually sharing the original video, but I just wanted to get into this so that you guys can see what happened and then subsequently what happens in the days afterwards. Let's get into it right now.
I'm here at Burger King, and an employee in Burger King just said "Free Palestine" to me. Arianna, what did you say to me? What did you say to me, Arianna? Okay, Arianna, because I was just...
Okay, hang on. Her name is Arianna. Take the poll.
To me. Arianna, what did you say to me? What did you say to me, Arianna? Okay, Arianna, because I was just ordering food for my family. This woman looks at me and she says, "Where are you from?" I said, "I'm from Israel." And then she says, "Free Palestine." And I said, "What does that have to do with anything?"
He's lying, by the way. He's not telling the entire truth. Unfortunately, the Zionists like to lie. But he's not going to tell you the entire truth. Arianna, she is going to tell you the things that he's intentionally leaving out. Let's continue.
We came here to order food, but she insisted, "Free Palestine." What, say it again. I got you, Arianna. Here at Burger King. No problem. So back in the car right now, obviously very upset, but we asked for a refund and we left the place, leaving me with the question, Burger King, are you a safe place for Jews right now? I'm here at Burger King.
So this has turned into a big thing, right? He posted this on social media thinking it was going to go well for him. He thought, right? So let's get what happened subsequently after that, because I think this is also really important. Because let's share this. All right. So I'm going to share this right here, and let's get into this. So shout out to Hen Mazig, says, "Remember the Burger King employee who shot at Free Palestine at a Jewish man? It has now been confirmed that Arianna Hamilton has since been fired. Now she has a GoFundMe, doubling down on actions and playing the victim." See how they say, oh, never shout out to this person. They're saying that she's playing the victim. Now, here's what it says. It says, "We are very sorry to hear about your experience. Burger King is a place where everyone should feel welcome, respected, and free from discrimination. We have no tolerance for anti-Semitism, hate, or discrimination of any kind. We are working with the franchisee that owns and operates this restaurant to address the situation." So she has since been fired, right? I want to share this with you guys. Her response to what has actually happened, because it is important that we get full context. Because context matters. You know, how we were talking about nuance and context in the last segment. Well, let's get into that. Okay? Let's take a look here. So they get into subsequently what happened, but she gives a detailed explanation. And so here she is once again. Let's go.
Arianna, what did you say to me? What did you say to me, Arianna? What did you... Okay. Okay, Arianna.
Hello, everybody. My name is Arianna Hamilton. I am the person from this video. First is my side of the story. I'm going to keep it real short and simple. That man did come in very aggressively. I did not ask him where he was from, like originated from. I asked him, where's he from the Lehigh Valley? We get a lot of people from a lot of different places, New York, New Jersey. As he didn't say in the video, he did originally said he was from New Jersey, and we stopped it at that. And so he took.
Oh, so he didn't say Israel at first. He said New Jersey. So he should have kept it at just that. Let's continue. I want you to listen. Listen. Watch this.
Got the Star of David from his shirt and said, I'm Israeli. I'm from Israel.
Oh, wait. What did she say?
New Jersey, and we stopped it at that. And so he took out the Star of David from his shirt and said, I'm Israeli.
He took out the Star of David from his shirt and he said, I'm Israeli. So, which one is it? Are you from New Jersey or are you from Israel? Which one is it? Now, let's continue on her explanation.
I'm from Israel, and that is what got me to say Free Palestine. Absolutely, I wasn't going to back down on Free Palestine when he put the camera in my face. That's just not somebody I am. I will forever speak on my views, and I will never be scared to say what I think. I just wanted to say my whole point of saying Free Palestine was not to spread hate, because the reason I was fired was because I discriminated against him and I had said hate speech. That is not what I wanted to give out. That was not my intention. My intention was to speak all my views, because absolutely I say Free Palestine, Free Gaza, stop the genocide. Because what's going on right now is more than any of us could imagine. We're not living in it, so we don't know what it is or what's happening or like experiencing it. We're not experiencing it, so we think it's nothing, but it's absolutely something. Kids are dying. Kids haven't been to school. Kids are supporting kids. They're not getting food. They're not getting water. Their parents are dying in front of them. There's more amputees in Gaza alone. This is not okay. It's not okay, and I will continue to speak on that fact. Free Gaza. Free Palestine. But it's a lot's going on right now, and I'm trying to keep to myself, because the threats I've been getting from people from Israel have been absolutely insane.
So also, here you have a young Black woman that's getting threats from Zionists. Getting threats. It's already enough that she has to worry about being a Black woman in America, being threatened constantly, and now she's getting threats from Zionists. This is one of the things I want to share with you guys, because on this channel, I'm going to champion people who are disenfranchised and people who are marginalized. This is the second Black woman I've shown today who stood on business. You guys better give some applause to this young lady. For Briahna Joy Gray for standing on business on Piers Morgan, to Miss Arianna Hamilton for standing on business while she was at work. And she stood 10 toes down. She did not retract. Let's continue. Let's let her finish.
Yeah, and my last question for you guys is Burger King safe for Palestinians right now?
Arianna.
Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Is Burger King safe for Palestinians? That's a great question. Because my question is, oh my God, somebody said Free Palestine. Oh. But yet, is Burger King safe for Palestinians? We you know, I mean, looks like we're getting our answer. But he posted that video saying that he thought she was going to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Here's the thing. Zionism and Judaism are two completely different things. Judaism is a religion, and it is, synonymous with all the other Abrahamic religions, including Christianity, as well as Islam, right? Also, to say free Palestine is not anti-Semitic. You know why? Because saying free Palestine, if you think saying free Palestine is anti-Semitic, then you also must equally think that saying free Palestine is also anti-Christian. Because, right? But it's not. Saying free Palestine is not against Jewish people. There are Jewish Palestinians that are living in Gaza. So when you say free Palestine, you're not saying anything wrong against the Jewish Palestinians. Right? So that's the thing, right? Zionism is a political ideology. Judaism is a religion. And yet, she got fired for hate speech because she dared say the one thing that got him triggered. Also, by the way, that gentleman, if he had not said he was Jewish, I wouldn't know. I just saw a white dude. That's all I saw. I didn't see anybody. Look, if he didn't tell me he was Jewish, I wouldn't have thought he was a Jewish guy. Unless he told me. Yo, I didn't know Marianne Williamson was Jewish until she said it. So it had nothing to do against Judaism. I can't tell sometimes. But what it really is about, it's about being able to flaunt around this settler colonial ideology and think that people are going to stand by it, while the people who espouse this political ideology are not going to get any pushback from people. And she is a Black woman in America. And so she knows what oppression is. And so you don't think she's not going to be able to identify that? And that's why he was so quick to pull his phone out and record. Because he had a feeling that maybe she'll, if not, then I'll get a viral moment out of it. Well, he got his viral moment. And let me tell you something about this gentleman. I want to share this with you guys too, because, things start to come out. Things start to come out when you realize about people like this. So let's share this so that you guys know. This is from Zoe Brown. It says, Burger King anti-Semitism dude is an Israeli propagandist. That's him. That's him. This person, this European, right, says Rami Feinstein was ordering food for his family. Right? So let me share something with you guys. So because she's been fired, you can't survive, hell, even on minimum wage. But in order for her to get some help, she started GoFundMe. And Miss Arianna Hamilton has raised $154,367. This young lady who stood on business, being anti-genocide, being pro-liberation, raised more money than she would have earned in what, 5-6 years? Because she stood on business. And here's my thing. One, this is class warfare. Because here she is as a Burger King worker in Pennsylvania, where the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. I guarantee you she probably wasn't making more than $13. Between $12 and $13 an hour. So there's that. There's also the race issue. She's a young black woman. Here you have a white man complaining about a young black woman because she stands with the oppressed. And so therefore, you got that too. Then on top of that, she's a woman. Then you have this man complaining about this woman. And then on top of that, she's talking about freedom for people who are oppressed, who have, let's be real, there's probably upwards of 1 million Palestinians that have been murdered in Gaza, that have been genocided in Gaza. Let's just put it out there. There's probably close to 1 million. That people are still under the rubble. They're still recovering bodies. Not only that, but you also have the subsequent health concerns. You have heat stroke. You have the elements. All these different crazy things that are constantly happening, and not just in Gaza. You also talk about the West Bank, Ramallah, Jabalia, all these other different areas where they are constantly murdering Palestinians. And so you attacked her from all these different fronts. And you know what gets on my nerves is that when a white racist says some racist shit, and then when they get fired, they scurry to online to say, oh my God, I was just saying what was on my mind, my free speech, and now they're coming after me, and they can raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. It makes me happy that a black woman could stand for the rights of marginalized people, either here or abroad. And black people, we know, we see it. And that fact that she can actually say, hey, I'm standing 10 toes down on this. This is about what's right and wrong, and I'm going to stand 10 toes down. And then people said, I bet, boom, let me share this with you guys. This is huge. Bro, look, whoever this gentleman is, Jeffrey Thorpe, gave $10,000. He donated $10,000 by himself. That's what, a half year's wage for her? So, y'all, look. We gotta applaud, because my thing is like, why are we? This is a big story, and this is happening to our own black folks, standing by another oppressed group, and of course we got to stand for ourselves. Of course, yeah, stand for ourselves, definitely. But she's also standing with another oppressed group, and she's reaping the reward for doing the right thing. And she did the right thing at that very moment without expecting anything in return. She was at work. She was not expecting that to happen. And as soon as he aggressively tried to push his Zionist stance on her while she's at work, guess what? Boom, free Palestine. And here's the crazy part about this. If he hadn't pulled out his camera, she might have still lost her job. Or she might have just got disciplined. But we wouldn't know who she is. But because he, in his hubris, decided to record it and make her famous. Because the goal wasn't really to just advocate for Jewish people. It wasn't. He's not interested in advocating for Jewish people. He's interested in advocating for Zionism. He doesn't care about actual Jewish people, by the way. He doesn't. He wanted to destroy her. Because how dare a black woman look him in his supremacist face and advocate for liberation for people. Guys, her GoFundMe is in the description of this video. It would be a shame if she reached $200,000. It would be a shame, oh my God, if she got 250,000. Or if you guys spread it. Oh my God, it would be such a shame. But this is your reminder to constantly stand on business no matter what. Black people, we stand on business for ourselves, but we also see the other people who are oppressed and we stand on business too. I'm proud of my sister. I'm proud of her, and I'm also proud of Briahna Joy Gray for standing on business. I'm proud of all my other people who stand on business, whether it's for us, for the poor, for people who are languishing in prison because of what our system has done to them, or for the people abroad who are suffering. I'm proud of y'all. And to Miss Arianna, I'm proud of you too. I hope you have a beautiful day. Go ahead and like the stream, guys. Thank you so very much. Let's get into the comments and let's get into the poll. Did you guys think that what she did was the right thing to do? So let me check here. Oop. There we go. All right. Let me share the poll with you guys just to see. All right, so out of 33 votes, it says, do you think Arianna did the right thing? And my apologies, I misspelled her name. But Arianna did the right thing. 52% said yes. 9% said no. 12% said right thing, wrong time. And then 27% say, I don't know. Thank you very much for all your honesty, people. Appreciate it very much. Yes, I think she did the right thing at the right time. It is always the time to do what is right. That's what I think. All right, guys. So let's get into the comments and then we shall end the stream. All right. We're good on Rumble. And let's go in here. Hang on. Thank you for this from Justice. Okay, 10 joules, gold coin. Thank you so very much. Appreciate that. Make sure I didn't miss any other super chats. I think we're good here. Let's see. Okay. Oh my Lord. Eric said, hey, you are such a little child that you go around trying to get fast food employees fired. You know, and you know, it's funny how many times we get microaggressions, macroaggressions, people being racist to us Black people, and yet, how often are we going, oh man, is Starbucks a safe place for Black people? Is McDonald's a safe place for Black people? Is Shake Shack a great safe place for Black people? Or Hobby Lobby, is that a great place for Black people? Or is Cracker Barrel a safe place for Black people? You know, you don't really hear that, right? And my problem is, it's like, hold on, dude, you're a white dude living in America. You are not oppressed. Stop trying to act like it. You're not oppressed. I'm going to kind of censor myself a little bit, but it's like what Paul Mooney said. Everybody want to be a ninja, but nobody want to be a ninja. You know what I meant. You want to be us. You want to have our rhythm, but not our blues. You want to be the oppressed, but then when it comes to the actual oppression, when it really does happen, then you guys are like, oh my God, this is horrible. And it's not even oppression. All she said was free Palestine. If it were me, I would have been like, from a river to the sea, Palestine will be free. I would have made a dance out of it. And don't come to me telling me, oh my God, well, we care about Black people in Israel. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just ask the Ethiopian Jews. They don't care about Black people there. No, you don't. You want some of the good ones, just like the racist white people do here. You want one of the good ones. You want a coon. Cone. Ice cream cone. You want a spoon. But no, you guys don't actually want people who are fighting for liberation. Fannie Lou Hamer said nobody's free until we're all free. What part of that do y'all not understand? I'm not talking to you guys, my audience, but I'm talking about people like that. Oh my God. Oh, Jacqueline says she gave the wrong answer. It's okay. We all make mistakes. It's all right. Look, one time I wore horizontal stripes. Worst mistake of my life. Good to see you, True Sensei. John says, now can we boycott their nasty ass burgers? Roots and Bark says, these folks put up GoFundMe after murdering Black kids. They need to stop. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Jacqueline says, both Burger King and McDonald's are terrible places to eat, not just for their Zionist beliefs. Yep. I'll flame broil my own burgers. Thank you very much. Edward says, I knew this dude was going to twist this into something that she was anti-Semitic. They don't have to fire her. He said he was from New Jersey, then said Israeli. Yep. John Kemper, don't threaten me with a good time. Said I will cook you a burger for less and bet you it's 100% better. Don't threaten me with a good time, brother. And don't you put that cheese on there to melt. And then put some lettuce, tomato, onions, a little bit of mayo. And if that burger's marinated, don't threaten me with no good time. I'm gonna raid your fridge, brother. I'm gonna raid your fridge. John Kipper looked like the type of brother that got he sounded like the type of brother that got some banana nut bread just chilling on the countertop, or some lemon pound cake. I bet you do. I bet you do. Big back city over here. I started saying, God bless Arianna. Yes, and Skylar says Palestinians are Semitic people, but that's a whole nother conversation some people aren't ready to have. Yes. Also, by the way, while I'm here, I might as well give you guys a share. Just, and I hope that GoFundMe actually is paying her the funds that are donated, because GoFundMe be on some BS, you know what I'm saying? I'm just saying. Sheila Borkin says Palestinians have a right of self-determination on their homeland. They also have a right to defend themselves. That's international law. They do. I got to be careful with how I say this, Roger, but them white Zionists are not even Semites to be calling someone anti-Semitic. Yeah, but Skylar said, "Child, I thought Haley, I see Israel in my dreams. Stevens was Jewish, but she's not. So yeah, a lot of these folks just aren't visibly Jewish. That guy was really an a-hole." Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nika says, time to boycott Burger King and support Arianna. Mm-hmm. And if y'all know any good black businesses that are, good food eateries, like, if there any black businesses that are burger joints, but they actually have some good food and good service, then go to them places. All right, so let me see. All right, guys. Yeah, she stood 10 toes down, y'all. That was like Afeni levels of boldness, man. Shout out to my sister Afeni, man. And Roger, you ain't right. You ain't right, Roger. I'm not reading that. I'm not getting my behind in trouble. Oh my goodness. Roger, I'm sorry. John's like bananas in my daughter's freezer right now, boy. And yes, I might have to do a cooking channel. I might have to do a little something. Jacqueline, I can do either, but I prefer red onions. And Katie Grigor says no bathtub collard greens. Collard green scare awesome, but not from a bathtub. Look, I do not want my collard greens tasting like Comet cleanser. I do not want that seasoning. That sneezing doesn't make me sneeze. It makes me cough. All right, guys. So I'm going to be back on Tuesday, I promise. And I thank you guys for this. I'm also going to share a funny video with you guys so that you guys can, laugh, on the way out. But yeah, that was a really good, that was something that was negative that turned into a positive. So I wanted to give you guys that. Let's go. Oh, you know what? What was it? What's this? Oh, I meant to play this too. I'm gonna have to clip it differently. Let me share this with y'all too before I go. This is basically on the other part that I want to share with you guys. Hang on. Is it gonna let me refresh? Okay. So KJ World 1995 is also a resident of Orlando, and he posted this as well. Just so you guys can see, he posted an update, but I just want to share this with y'all too, because apparently, this guy is not happy, and I completely forgot to follow up with this, but here you go.
Follow-up video after Arianna got fired. Let's check it out.
I want to give an update about this Burger King thing. If you haven't seen it already, Burger King commented on my post, and I thought it was a good comment. No tolerance for anti-Semitism, and they will investigate. I didn't get any more information from them, but I understand that the employee was fired because I saw that she is asking for money in the internet because she is obviously the victim here. And I quote, "For exercising my freedom of speech in a Burger King as an employee with your Burger King uniform to a Jewish customer just because he was Jewish, commenting."
No, it wasn't because you were Jewish. First of all, it was because you were expressing your Zionist ideology, which is a political ideology. It had nothing to do with your religion or your ethnic identity, which she saw was just a white man. So therefore, you do not get to change the narrative on this just because she was able to raise over $150,000 from your racist ass. So no, absolutely not. You do not get that narrative.
On this conflict on the other side of the world that has nothing to do with you, I feel like there's...
Oh, no. It has everything to do with us, because the money that went to you should have been going to us Black people, including Miss Arianna, as reparations. You guys know what reparations are. You guys got some, remember? Well, guess what? We never got ours. And so our reparations money is also going to you so you guys can have free healthcare and childcare while you are killing people abroad who haven't done anything to you but resist occupation. And so now you're saying, oh my God, it doesn't matter to us because it's all on the other side of the world. No. That's our money. And it does matter to us. And it does influence us. And influence us so much that she got fired for it. Golly.
Two groups of people in my comments and my DMs. One group is for civilized people that understand that maybe Burger King is not exactly the place to conduct our disagreements as a customer is ordering his Impossible Burger. And another group.
But you pushed your ideology on her.
Of narcissistic, anti-Zionist, Jew-hating people that think that they can do whatever they want. And when they see Jewish people, they can just throw whatever they have at them. Doesn't matter the situation. Doesn't matter if their kids are there, yes or no. Just, they're Jews. We can just say whatever we want to them in any...
You notice he keeps saying Jews. He doesn't say Zionist. You know that's on purpose, right? Remember, he's a propagandist. He's trying to conflate Judaism with Zionism. No, it's not. It's not the same. Peep game. He's trying to make it sound like it's one thing when it's not the other. That's like somebody who is constantly buying up homes and kicking people out. And then when you try to fight against them or say something against them, well, I'm just a businessman. I'm just conducting business. I'm just a businessman. When in reality, you are a thief. Taking people's houses and then kicking them out.
Situation. And how dare that Jew complain about going into a restaurant and wanting to not be harassed when he is ordering his food? How dare that Jew complain about that? Two clarifications. First of all, I think, yes, we should confront anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, wherever we see it. But it doesn't mean, even though I had 2 viral videos lately, it doesn't mean that I always think that you should take the phone and, hey, everybody look at this. No, a lot of times it's a conversation. In that same road trip for my family, we stopped at a gas station and my son went into the bathroom. He's like, Daddy, look at this. There was a writing over there in the bathroom said F Israel. My 11-year-old son saw this. I had to talk with the manager. I said, listen, how do you want Jews or Israelis to feel when they come here?
Okay, so somebody wrote that, right? They didn't say that against Jews. They said that against Zionism. But yeah, you keep conflating the two. Hell, even Miko Peled, who was raised in Israel, was raised as a Zionist, will tell you, yeah, they're 2 different things. Miko Peled is Jewish. This is propaganda, man.
And she said, no, we welcome all people. We're going to take care of it and erase it. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Another thing I want to clarify. If you're a Jew and you think that this happened because this Jew is very visible, and if I just lay down and not be so visible, I won't get any heat. That is not true. Maybe, yes, some people see this and comment, sure. And also great comments as well. But also, when my son went to the bathroom, that could have been your kid too. And
hold on, wait a minute. Also, by the way, no, you're not as oppressed as you think you are, because if you didn't have that necklace on, number one, we wouldn't think you're Jewish. But contrast with people like me. The moment they see me, they know I'm a black man. And so the moment they see me, I get discrimination just because they see me with their own 2 eyes. So who is actually more oppressed over here? And the same thing with Arianna Hamilton. Guess what? They look at her, they see a black woman, immediately she's going to get oppressed. They see you, they're going to think you're just one of the good old boys. So no. It's not about that. Because you literally have to pronounce yourself as a part of some marginalized group in order to make yourself seem like you're the victim, when in reality, all we got to do is just exist. And we're oppressed. Can I get an amen in the chat? You know what I mean?
you have a choice. Do you want to be that Jew that tries not to be noticed? Or do you want to be that Jew that fights for his right to be exactly who you are?
First off, Free Palestine isn't anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is hate towards Jewish people. She never said she hates Jewish people. And you're trying to downplay her for asking for money when your video helped her raise 4 years worth of her Burger King pay. Nobody hates Jewish people. You have yet to address Palestine. All I hear in your videos is just me. That says a lot about your character. You have too much entitlement. Welcome to America, where we put liberty before a job.
Oh! We put liberty before a job. Is that right? My thing is, it's like, it was not hatred towards Jewish people. He keeps conflating the two because he wants you to conflate the two, when in reality it's not. And so, you know, his page is called KJ World. Let me share this. I would love to get him on because he actually talks about the Black community here in Orlando. But he has, you know, some great videos and he talks about, you know, the things where I've actually done mutual aid in those areas. Like for instance, here downtown at Division Avenue, you know, that's not too far from me, so I know exactly where that's at. And so, you know, he talks about a lot of what's going on in the Black community here in Orlando. So I would love to get him on. Let me share his profile so you guys can follow him on Instagram. He's doing great work. And my apologies for not sharing this earlier, but yes, you know, go ahead and give him a follow. But yeah, guys, right? It doesn't make any sense for people to be that way, because the problem is, it's like, why in the world are you trying to push your ideology on people while they're at work? You know what I mean? Something to think about. All right, guys. So I'm going to be headed out, but this is going to be a let me share. Let me see. Yeah. I want to share this funny video for you guys. I'm going to share this video with you guys, and this is going to be funny, but I hope you guys have yourself a beautiful day as we go out, you know, as we turn out from this stream and we end our day. But this is a 7-year-old. It says POV, point of view, when you go to discipline your 7-year-old for getting in trouble at school, but his points are valid. Listen to this little boy. Y'all gonna laugh.
For the last 2 weeks, Johnny been picking on Ezekiel. I call him my brother. So I don't care what nobody else says. He's my brother. If anybody's in my family, I want them to be okay and safe and not harmed. That's the only thing I want. I don't want nothing else. I don't care if I get in trouble, kicked out, or nothing. I want anybody that's in my family, I want them to be safe, not harmed.
I understand some, but then I always end up getting calls about, you know, you doing this and you doing that. What about
I'm protecting my family. And that's the only part I gotta say is I'm protecting my family. And he's my family.
And
You heard that bass in his voice? Yo, like, wait. The innocence came out of his mouth. He's like, because I'm protecting my family. I ain't going to answer. I ain't going to talk no more about it. That was a 7-year-old. The way you said family, it's almost sounded like Vin Diesel a little bit. Johnny caught those hands. Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you so very much for this. John says 1,000 Joules GOAT trophy. Thank you so very much for that. Appreciate it deeply. Oh man. You guys, thank you so very much for all the super chats. But Scott says, listen, I don't condone violence, but sometimes MFers refuse to learn. Nika says he's getting straight to business at 7 years old. Kitty Grigor says, good kid. I'd be afraid to discipline him. I'm afraid I'm gonna catch hands if I discipline him. I'm afraid if I take away, his Nintendo Switch, I'm gonna have to go grab a Switch. Oh my Lord. Oh my goodness. Guys, thank you so very much for tuning in. This was a great stream. I appreciate you guys for being patient with me. Especially since I wasn't live on Tuesday. I hope you guys have yourself a great night and great weekend. Thank you so very much for the super sticker, Teresa. And appreciate it very much. So guys, take care of yourselves, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. Stand 10 toes down on liberation. Decolonize our minds as well as focus on making sure that everybody gets liberation. We also start with ourselves and liberating our minds and our people around us, but also we expand that belief in liberation for everybody else as well, including but not limited to Palestinians and people across the continent of Africa. And also think about the liberation of all those Black Americans that are in prison right now because of the policies of this country, which have been massacring us here on this soil. And also keep in mind the Native Americans that are constantly being bombarded in this country as well. And also anybody who is part of any marginalized group that is suffering because of the policies that are in existence in both parties. Guys, thank you so very much. I love you guys for being who you are and constantly, sticking with the channel and helping me to be able to grow so much. Thank you. Mwah, forehead kisses. I will see you guys in the next one. Drink some water and stay moisturized out there. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you'd like to see any more, you can look here. Mwah, forehead kisses.